Hey everyone, we're back with Game Face, episode 132, but most importantly, it is our best of E3 2018 episode. We have 12 categories, 14...
That didn't count.
...ish, a dozen-ish categories that we're going to give out awards for. Most of them, we're just giving a winner. There's a couple where we have a runner-up, and a few categories where we chose like an honorable mention where we felt really strongly about a game that deserved to be recognized. E3 is over, actually right at this moment, just 24 hours over, ended yesterday. We're going to get into the show first and talk about like our general impressions of the show overall. We'll do 2 up, 2 down like we always do for our Best of E3 awards, and then we'll get into the awards proper. Before we get going though, I want to say a couple things. First, I want to thank our curators who worked during E3 week for us. Vincent and the crew did an amazing job. It freed me up so I could create more content for you guys. So if you see them on the site or maybe they're in the chat tonight, please thank them for what they did because they put in a lot of hard work, a lot of long hours. Speaking of long hours, I hate to say it, but I cannot wait for this show to be over. I am so tired. If I yawn during this episode, I really apologize. I haven't slept more than 5 hours all week.
Yeah, it's been a lot. E3 gets longer and longer.
Today is...
Now it started on Saturday.
Yeah, and today is the 18th straight day that I have worked without a day off because you start doing all the planning and getting everything ready before it starts. So I am burnt. Yesterday was a great day at the show. Literally the best last day of E3 I've ever had. And we'll talk about some stuff that played into that and why that's so. But E3 is over. It's like what happens after E3 is you have like this emotional letdown. Like I got home, I was all jacked up, and then after I finished recording the third diary that I did from E3, like it hit me that it was over, and then it just I just fell into this pool of exhaustion, and it had to keep working. And then last night I did finally get like 6.5 hours of sleep, so I'm starting to catch up a little bit. But this weekend's going to be very, very important. A couple other things. I did mention a bunch of this stuff in my E3 diaries, but I know a lot of people only watch Game Face and don't watch some of the other content on Sifted. Yeah, it was a great show, I think. You, not so much.
No, I didn't enjoy so much of the difficulty getting in.
Yeah.
We had some badge problems.
Yeah.
They got sorted out after some time, and then day 3 apparently they were checking IDs. Because they found people like 5,000 people were trying to sell their general admission badges on Craigslist the night before. There was a tangible police presence at this E3.
I'm okay with that though, because remember last year people complained.
Yeah.
They were saying that there's no security and everyone's afraid someone's going to come in there with a bomb or whatever.
Well, now there's bomb sniffing dogs everywhere.
There's bomb dogs everywhere, and there are metal detectors at every entrance. Yeah. And I mean, it did take longer to get into the show, but I'm 100% okay with that.
It's more of a depressing sign of the times, I guess.
It is, but I'd rather be safe than sorry.
Yeah, but that's the price you pay when you let the general public in.
It is, absolutely, yeah. But you know, when you bring in equipment like I did every day, you have to get all your equipment searched, and they look through all that stuff. But ultimately, I think it was worth it.
It felt a little better laid out than last year. Like at least
smaller.
It was smaller, but it was also like, also it was just because the lack of Microsoft in that one hall.
And
like,
EA, because they used to be side by side.
Yeah, it all kind of like, it felt a little more spread out. There was more room for people to walk around. I think the booths were crowded. After they let the people in, I think the early morning, like industry-only hours are very useful, very necessary.
Absolutely, yeah.
Got a ton of stuff done and played in that amount of time. And then they let the masses in, and it is a pretty crazy running of the nerds when that happens.
Oh,
like
yeah.
I was in the lobby when they let them in on Wednesday, and it was, just giant security men holding back people, and like people trying to run around, and guys grabbing them and throwing them back in the crowd. It was a little chaotic. But
they're running to get that free stuff.
You get that Nintendo booth, and but once they get in there, like the booths are crowded. You couldn't get near anything you wanted to play, but walking around was okay. Last year you couldn't walk around. Like they weren't planned out.
Yeah, Tuesday was pretty bad.
Lines spilled out into the pathways, and it felt like there was a little more thought this year. Like Sony's booth, people were talking about how Sony's booth had nothing in it this year.
It really didn't.
It was a wall of Spider-Man and a little Destiny section, and a little Black Ops 4 section, and a little FIFA section, and then the rest was a giant stage with like an open space in front for people to sit down and watch. But like that's the kind of space you need because last year it was the same kiosks everywhere layout they've had forever, and it was just this choking mass of humanity. And like that way,
Consequently, now there was nobody in the Sony booth. It was
Yeah.
empty the whole week.
it was not empty one time. And that
Kojima
was at 4 p.m. on Wednesday when I had to go in to see Dreams, and I got there right as Kojima was about to come. I'm like, okay, I'll do this, and like I'm like, oh, there's a space here, I'll sit down. And I was really boring, and like they had, because Kojima's not going to tell you anything, like they are not,
and he didn't.
It's just a bunch of like softball questions about, like, what was it like working with Norman Reed?
It was like a
just
30-minute
usual
blowjob
thing,
for
pretty
Kojima,
much.
like he always gets every
Right.
time he does an interview. No one ever asks him hard questions.
And I started to kind of doze off at one point because it was warm,
Yeah.
and I was like, maybe I should just get up and leave. And I turn around and it's just like this mass of humanity behind me. I'm like, I guess I'll just stay here until it's over. So yeah, people knew when something big was happening, but like generally the Sony booth was pretty empty outside of the Spider-Man section.
I thought Tuesday was crazy.
Well,
Like,
Tuesday when everybody was there at once because of the first day. Man, that's
Yeah.
true of any convention.
But it was insane. Like it was hard to get around. If you look at the B-roll that we put up, we did a show floor tour that's been up on the site for a few days now. If you look at that was shot on Tuesday, the first day. It's intense. Like literally just getting log jammed over and over again. And you were talking earlier about how it's smaller. It is way smaller because they lost EA, and that booth was the size of like a mall. And now they've lost Microsoft, and they took all that space and just chopped it off and put like these curtains up. And that hall now is probably half the size of what it used to be. They kind of put some indie stuff along the edge there, and
you
the
hit the
Mixer booth was still there, but it was puny.
You definitely hit the weird like fringe stuff faster when
Yeah.
you're walking around this year.
I mean, that one hall was kind of worthless.
Yeah, usually on one
There was
end.
Nintendo, Sony, and then nothing else.
Yeah, I mean that was where the game media was. Like IGN was in there, and what was it? You had Atlas. You had
Atlas/Sega.
Sega, and you had.
Which I'm sure Atlas is very happy about.
And yeah, you had kind of the old school people were in there.
But Sega's booth was completely dialed back from last year.
Oh yeah.
Last year, Sega's booth was impressive. It had this really cool tunnel that you could walk through that had like lights that chased down it. This year, it was almost like a food truck with like some kiosks set up
Yeah,
in
it was
front.
it was an afterthought. Pretty
Yeah,
much. There was
they had pulled back a good
not
bit.
much happening. But they didn't have a whole lot to show. I mean, last year they had like Persona 5, and
Right.
and so they still had the Persona dancing games at this one, but
Yeah.
it was a subdued presence.
Absolutely.
A lot of it was like this was an E3 where people showed off stuff that we already knew about. It was more like let us expand on things you've heard about before.
Well, it's like we had to pick best debut at the show.
Yeah, there weren't a lot of those.
It was hard to pick the
Like
best debut.
Like if you really get, there's people who's like, oh, Cyberpunk debuted. It's like, well, no, we knew about Cyberpunk years ago.
like
Or
5 years ago.
we knew
yeah.
about Ghost of Tsushima last year. We knew about, we knew about, Shadows Must Die in December.
Yeah.
If you're talking about something we'd never seen before, you're
Very rare.
very limited.
Yeah, there wasn't a ton.
And several of the things that we had never seen before, because we're not counting leaks, but I wasn't too impressed by.
Yeah.
Like,
And
not all the debuts were good news. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, that's true. The other thing, the attendance for this year's E3, 800 people short of 70,000.
That's a lot.
The all-time record for E3 is 70,000, so it fell 800 short of that. And guess what year that was?
That's probably the year before they felt they had to move it.
Yeah, that was the year before they were like, whoa, this is getting out of hand.
Well, I know there was a lot of chatter after hours about,
Over libations.
about like what was happening to the show, like what's going on, and like
Yeah.
a lot of people are convinced that they're basically like waiting something out here, and then when it gets like critical mass, they're going to move it to Vegas, which is the place with a convention center big enough to handle it.
Talk about full circle, because
Yeah.
E3 started as like a spin-off of CES in
Vegas,
Las
yeah.
Vegas, and now it's just all coming back around. It'd be
Yeah.
better than doing that weird thing they did in Santa Monica. So,
Yeah, that was not a good look.
and an excuse to go to Vegas for a few days, I'll take that.
Yeah, I don't like Vegas.
I like it for 3 days, and after 3 days,
3 days is
get
definitely
me out
my
of there.
Vegas limit. Yeah.
Get me out of
Yeah.
there. But overall, I thought the show was handled well, despite the new security. I thought
It was better than last year.
absolutely, yeah,
sure.
and there were more people. One observation I did make is that Nintendo's booth was not like it usually is.
No, Nintendo's booth was real Spartan.
Yeah.
Not to draw Assassin's Creed comparisons, but like, no, because I remember we speculate, oh, it'll be Smash Brothers themed. Like, no, it's just big red Switch logo walls and a big open space, and you can play Smash Brothers.
Matt, you could not. The first day you could just walk into Nintendo's booth. After that, you had to wait in line just to get into the booth.
Yeah.
I've never seen that before at E3 from any publisher, ever.
Anything that was an open booth, yeah. Because like the Zelda year, you had to wait in line just get inside.
To
get inside.
To get in the Zelda booth.
But that was the Nintendo booth, period. Was just the big Breath of the Wild.
They had the regular booth, and then there was a little walkway that went into the big Zelda world. They had their own normal booth.
A little tiny section around it, yeah. It
was big.
Most of the booth was that.
I can show you the B-roll. It was a normal Nintendo booth. There was a little hallway that you walked through, and then there was like this dome that was all Zelda World.
Yeah, well, you could walk through the middle of the booth.
You just couldn't get into the Zelda thing. You had to wait in line.
This year, you could walk through the middle of the booth.
You couldn't. After the first day, you could not.
I walked right through it twice on Wednesday.
You slid past security because I was stopped all day Wednesday and all day yesterday. They would not let you in unless you waited in line. Not even to just walk around and watch other people play games.
No, they had the places where you played games sort of cordoned off, but you could walk through the direct center. It was like an aisle, and
they stopped me over and over again.
They had all those. They had all those the props in the display cases. Like you could walk through those. Like that was the only thing.
You got lucky. Absolutely, you could not.
I did that like 3 times.
Tuesday, I did it, no problem. I walked all the way through the booth. Thank God that was the day I shot the B-roll of the booth. I went back Wednesday. I tried to go in 3 different entrances. They're like, we're not letting anyone into the booth unless they wait in line. I left. I came back an hour and a half later. I kind of slid in, and someone came and grabbed my shirt and pulled me out. Went back yesterday. I couldn't even get in. They were on it. Like, you literally were not allowed or not supposed to go in unless you waited in line, which I have never seen before. And it wasn't even that crowded. Like, Nintendo's lines, the line for Smash Brothers was maybe a quarter of what it was for Mario and Zelda. Like, Nintendo had created these huge, they looked like a parking lot, for an amusement park ride, where your people were supposed to snake back and forth, empty. They never even had those, there was 2 of them. One of them was always completely empty. The other one was never even a quarter full. So Nintendo anticipated a lot more traffic for Smash Brothers than it actually got.
I mean, usually Nintendo's booth is that.
Right.
It's the most heavily trafficked, it's the most crowded. It doesn't even matter what's on display. I mean, there were lines like that to play Star Fox Zero.
Yeah. But yeah, and their lines were not full at all. And of course, I'm sure you've probably seen already that Nintendo stock has fallen 15% since the Direct was released.
Well, their 2018 schedule is barely existent.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are stupid for selling the stock, but it is a sign of how investors are reacting to what Nintendo did at the show. And most of the analysts are saying the reason that people bailed is not because they didn't show Metroid Prime 4 or Retro's new game. It's because Nintendo didn't show stuff that's going to appeal to a wide audience. Right. Maybe they should have held Labo for E3, but overall, I had a great time at the show. E3 is always a blast. I mean, I'm at the point in my life where I look at every E3 as it could be my last one. You just never know. Maybe Sifted doesn't work out, and my next job isn't even in games, and maybe that's the last E3 that I ever go to. You just don't know how life's going to work out. So I tried to squeeze this one for everything it was worth, just in case it was my last one, and I did. And I'm glad I did. I had a great, great time at E3. And that's just with the games and everything, not even counting all the people that I ran into and all that kind of stuff. So it was a great, great week, man. I've had a really good time. I think our coverage was good. We definitely put up more original coverage for E3 than we ever have. We have more stuff coming. We have Pactor's episode that we shot yesterday morning from the show floor. I have the segments that I did with the fans, talking to them about some people had come all the way from the Netherlands. I found some really good people to talk to about that. So I'm not promising anything for this weekend, folks. I need at least a day off to just chill. But as soon as I'm a little re-energized, I'll start getting on that stuff, and you'll start seeing that content. And it is evergreen, so you're not going to lose anything by us putting it out a couple days later. So please give me 1 day grace period to get a little bit of rest. It's been a tough week for me. But anything else you want to add about E3 2018 before we get into the 2 up, 2 down?
I think that about covers it. I'm trying to think of
Microsoft being across the street sucked.
Yeah.
I only went over there once. And I will say this, because they were across the street, I went over and got to play everything in 2 hours.
Yeah, it didn't seem too packed over there.
Yeah, somebody caught wind of me talking about the fact that I didn't think it was a good idea for Microsoft to leave the show floor at PAX Party. A guy you probably know, David Ellis. Do you know him?
Yeah.
He's an old journalist who now works at 343 on Halo, and he overheard me telling somebody that I thought it was a bad idea for Microsoft to leave. And he came over and gave me this spiel about why they've done it, and we're just across the street. And I mean, I do get it. Like with Microsoft, they own that building. So it does make sense for them more than EA. And I explained it to him. I'm like, look, EA is really the dirty birds in all this because they're away from the convention center and they're just basically skimming off of the convention to get people to their event, because you have that event 2 weeks ago or 2 weeks from now, you're not going to get that kind of turnout. So
I wonder what their turnout was, because that place is a long way away.
It is. It's like, I didn't go. I never went over there. Like, the good news was a lot of EA stuff ended up being in like Sony's booth or Nintendo's booth, and I got a chance to play.
I got to wonder how the Anthem people feel.
Yeah.
I feel like that game got lost.
It did. It absolutely did, because most of the people that went to E3 never experienced it. So that's EA's decision. If it thinks it's smart, then it'll keep doing it.
Microsoft. I mean, they're not wrong right across. I mean, it is right across the street. Although I will admit that, like, once you fought your way through all the security, the idea of leaving to go over to Microsoft was a little bit of a down because you got to do it all over again.
Yeah. It's a deterrent, without a doubt. Even though it's right across the street, it's a deterrent.
And Microsoft had no security.
Yeah, you just walk right in. Yeah. But, so that's our general impressions of E3 2018.
They did have free Coke, though. Outside of the theater was a free Coke stand.
Yeah.
You get Coke Life in a can now.
What's
Very exciting.
Coke Life?
That's their stevia flavored version of Coke.
I never even heard of that.
Is
it good?
It's better than aspartame, I think.
Yeah.
Or sucralose. It's like a leaf. It's like a leaf they grind up and it's sort of sweet.
I'll have to give it a go.
Not bad.
I'll try it. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about 2 Up, 2 Down. We do this sometimes when content or topics are low and it's a slow time in the industry. But this segment was actually born from E3 because it actually is really good for E3, because we talk about 2 games that kind of went up on our hype scale and 2 things that went down on our hype scale based upon our experience at E3. So Matt, you're up with your first up.
My first up is The Last of Us Part 2.
Not a surprise.
As someone who was not a giant fan of the first game, I'm kind of a skeptic on Part 2. But I think what they showed here both convinced me that the storytelling is on par, or not, if not better. I think you're going to get better performances out of their tech.
Only Ellie is playable.
And they're going
come out the last couple days.
Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
I think the speculation that Joel in the teaser from last year is a ghost or in her head is probably correct.
Or she finds out he lied and
or they doesn't talk to him anymore or something. It could be something like that. But clearly he's not really in her life at this point. But I mean, the dramatic scene here really worked for me. Certainly the best kissing technology ever seen.
Absolutely. I've never seen a kiss look so real in real time.
And some of the most violent combat animation of all time.
Absolutely.
And like the sort of the more survival driven sort of grab stuff on the fly and immediately use it against the guys who are attacking you, like cat and mouse element of it. Just felt like it felt like a similar concept to what I think they're going for in the first game, but it really felt like they're nailing it better in this one. And I'm sure a lot of that scripting and stuff, and we've seen The Last of Us 1.
There was a little mini controversy this week over that.
We've seen
Naughty Dog admitted that they didn't say it was scripted. They said that their tester had played it like dozens and dozens of times.
But I mean, it's like if you don't expect that in a demo like this, like what are you even talking about? Like it's I mean, if as long as everything's in the game, I'm fine with that. And that's like that's the issue of The Last of Us 1 was like when we finally got the game, a lot of the stuff, the way the enemies behaved in that first demo in like in the building, in the rooms, the hotel room or the apartment building or whatever that was, this simply wasn't in the game. So as long as all this is in here, as long as it can happen, like I'm fine with kind of doing sort of what is essentially a rehearsed vertical slice of the game. But like,
I like how she's not married to any weapon.
Yeah.
She'll use a weapon for like 15 seconds, it'll get stuck in a dude's face, and she just leaves it.
Yeah.
And just picks up something else from the environment or whatever.
And it also makes me interested in the story and the scenario. Like, you know, so clearly, like, when, it cuts from her, kissing the girl, and the girl said, they should be terrified of you. And it cuts to all this, and it comes back to that. Yeah. And it's like, if they're going to tackle the idea of, like, because I'm assuming, from the language of cinema here, that the combat here we're seeing happen before the dance she's at, that she's thinking back to what happened.
I don't even know if it'll be set up like that in the
No,
game.
but like,
Yeah.
but the implication of how you do those shots coming back is like you're in her head and you're thinking about here's this touching moment she has with this person she cares about, and and your mind goes back to this horrible thing you had to go through with these people that were trying to kill you. And if it's kind of about this balance of how to be a human after you've done all this crazy shit. And that's a real thing soldiers deal with. There's a PTSD element to it. There's like a lot of stuff going. Growing up in this world is going to screw with you, and clearly this world is getting a little better. Like if you can afford to have a tent revival dance, like
and
you're
not
doing all
worry
right.
about a
Yeah.
bunch of zombies barging
Right,
in
you're
and
not
eating everyone.
You're not scrabbling every minute for survival here. Like
Yeah.
this is a community that has found a way to have a little bit of leisure time, even if it's maybe for like a harvest festival kind of thing.
Yep.
So it's also kind of taking the post-apocalyptic thing like kind of forward in that idea. And like so, yeah, I'm intrigued. I want to know more. Especially impressive to me from a game that I really didn't feel needed a sequel. Like I felt like the story was told and that ending is great, and I didn't feel like I needed more really. But now they've got me interested to find out what this more is. Like I'm on board for Last of Us 2 right now, and I really didn't think I'd be saying that.
Well, it went up for me too, but I was already hyped for it. You were kind of down on it before the show. I've always been.
Yeah,
like,
this basically pulled me from slightly negative up to pretty positive.
Yeah.
I'd say this made me cross the line, like the neutral line.
Yeah.
Like and that's why I picked it, because I feel like that's kind of what this segment's about.
Will you care if Joel's
yeah.
not in
No.
the game? No.
No.
Not at all.
I feel like Joel's story was told.
Yeah.
Like he did what he. I mean, I'm sure he'll be in it in some kind of flashback
Right.
or kind of you'll find out what happened. You'll see him, or if he's still alive, you'll see him. If he's dead, you'll find out what happened. Whatever. But I think as you went through the narrative of Last of Us 1, it became clear that like Ellie was the story.
Well, also the DLC.
And the
Focused
DLC
on
Left
her.
Behind focused on that, and
Yeah.
I mean, she's the more interesting character at this point once she's gone through that journey with Joel. So I think focusing on her is the correct move.
I'm also surprised that some people are surprised at her sexuality, because if you played the DLC from the
Yeah.
first, you knew it already.
Yeah,
That wasn't a
there
surprise
was
to me
apparently
at
there seemed to be some people that like wanted to believe that was like a heat of the moment thing, or like she didn't really want to do it, but like it's just you don't deny someone that in that situation, or what. It's like no, I feel like that was pretty well
all. No,
established.
the DLC absolutely established it. The one DLC is just her and this girl, and they have
Yeah.
a couple moments together where it's made plain. Yeah,
Well,
so
some people won't see what's in front of them.
that's true. All right, my first up is Marvel Spider-Man, Insomniac Spider-Man. But
I didn't know you were down on this.
Well, it wasn't that I was down on it, it's that I was lukewarm on it. I wasn't all that excited to play it. I had said on, I think it was during our Sony analysis, that I said that it looked in a little bit like an older game to me. And after I've played it, it still kind of is, but I had a ton of fun playing.
Well, I mean,
the
it's
demo.
clearly taking a lot of lessons from the Arkham games.
Absolutely, yeah.
But the fact that Arkham was Batman and we've never played a Spider-Man game that kind of took the, I would say actually Shattered Dimensions sort of tried to be a little Arkham-y, but
Yeah.
it just didn't quite pull it off because
Yeah.
it just didn't get the verve right, and this one's like, I mean, obviously it's Insomniac and they have the budget and the talent to really like go for broke, and they
Yeah.
don't really have a hard deadline like the Activision games seem to have. Like the Activision games were a little more workmanlike, and this seems like a glamour project.
Yeah.
So,
What
yeah.
sold me is the combat. Once I really got my hands on it, and I had a guy standing next to me because he kind of let me jump the line, and he let me play the whole demo, because the way the demo was set up was you get tossed into the open world, and then you get to a certain point where you basically have to choose what you want to do. You could either do a boss fight against Shocker, or you could do the warehouse level that we've seen a bunch of times. And he let me play all that pretty much. And so he was in my ear, like helping me with combat. Like the basics are very easy. There's like one attack button, and then the other stuff is for your web stuff. But he was telling me, okay, now you want to fire your web. Now you want to go this, and it was opening up the combat for me and explaining it to me. And once I had someone there to kind of guide me through it, I started to realize just how robust and how versatile and how open-ended the combat is in this game. Like I started doing stuff, and I was like, I don't even know how I'm doing it, but it looks awesome and it was fun.
Yeah, the thing about this game is like, because the Arkham games had all the gadgets and all the different, like, but they're integrated into how you fight in this game so much better.
Seamlessly,
Than,
yeah.
because in Arkham, I always had to remember to, oh yeah, I could do that if I wanted. But generally, like Batman could get through that by just flipping around and punching people for the
Right.
most part and countering.
And a
But
lot of my
Spider-Man-
battles in Batman looked the same.
Yes. But Spider-Man,
But
like
no two battles look
you're-
the same in this
You
game.
can integrate all the web stuff. You can. I mean, the environment bouncing off walls. Like, I mean, using enemies against each other, grabbing stuff from them and swinging it around. I mean, it's about that improvisational kind of like only Spider-Man has that fighting style because he's Spider-Man. Like
Yeah,
no one
yeah.
else could do it because no one else has that balance of powers, and like they're really nailing it here.
And they're also, the one thing that I noticed when I played it was that using your web to grab stuff and then swinging it around is a really important tactic that you have to use in this
Yep.
game. Again, something that only Spider-Man could do. And so, yeah, I'm sold on Spider-Man for PlayStation 4. We don't have that long to wait for it either.
Yeah, it's 3 months, a little under 3 months. I will say, I watched a lot of footage of it, and I also watched people play it a lot because if you're in the Sony booth, there's not really anything else to do. And I feel like he killed a bunch of people. Like he knocked a bunch of people
yeah.
off roofs.
Is
and
he not
that-
supposed to kill people?
Spider-Man does not kill people.
Oh, he
does not
kills
kill
people left and right in this.
I mean,
I never knew that about Spider-Man.
Oh, that's like one of the key things about Spider-Man. He
I
doesn't
thought that was Batman's thing.
It's a lot of heroes don't do that, but Spider-Man does not kill anybody.
I did not know that.
Crossing the line to killing somebody is like a big deal with him.
Oh, people die in this. Absolutely,
well-
they die.
Like they die around him, but like he doesn't throw them off buildings and stuff. And I remember in interviews last year they said that like, oh, if a guy's gonna fly off a building, then we attach a web to him so he just kind of hangs there. I didn't see that in the
I didn't
comment
either.
in this one.
Yeah.
I mean, also there's the whole thing. It's like if you get grabbed by a web, swung around 3 times, and smashed into the ground, you're dead.
You're dead, yeah.
Like you're. I mean, the conceit of a lot of comic book stuff, especially Spider-Man, is like if you were hit with like a fist or a blunt or thrown or something, you didn't die. You know, it's
Right,
like as long as you weren't shot,
Yeah.
basically. It's like, you
But
just
in
kind of
this
got to
game,
go.
you can literally pick up boulders with your web and
Yeah.
swing them around and smack people with
Yeah,
them.
this thing it's like the Batman fight in the warehouse in Batman vs Superman where he's rescuing Martha Kent, and like it's awesome and it looks like an Arkham game, but you're like he's dead, he died, he's
Yeah.
the guy got hit by the forklift pallet is dead. Like it's like no one, it's like 5 people didn't walk away from that, and I definitely feel that like watching the combat in this game. It's a
Yeah.
nitpick though.
I
It's
don't
just-
care because I didn't even know. So
Yeah.
I just had fun.
Well, I
Right.
guarantee it'll get brought up during the game because his no killing code is a major
important
character trait.
Okay.
So we'll see.
Our first down we actually share. Mm-hmm. And that game is Soul Calibur 6. Both of us are down on Soul Calibur 6. Did you get to play it, Matt?
Yeah.
Not a long line for this.
No, I mean I mainly wanted to play it because I wanted to try Geralt.
Yeah.
So I want to see how he played, and I think they
He
translated
fits
him
right
well.
in.
Yeah, he fits.
I think
no
he
problem.
fits better than some of the characters that are in the game.
Yeah, he has the look and he
And the abilities that
and he
fit
matches
right in.
and like they do all the signs and everything. You can drink potions and stuff, and it
Yeah.
all works. I don't understand how a lot of it works, strategically because I was just sort of messing around. So,
Yeah.
But I did win both my matches.
Yeah.
My main thing is like, and this has been discussed a lot online as well, but it's like some of the stuff and some of the assets in this game are from Soul Calibur 4 and just sort of like up-resed.
That's
and like,
bad.
And like there's a lot of things in it that they're kind of taking from the recent Tekkens that feel like they don't really fit. Like
Yeah.
especially the change in like kind of slow motion stuff, which I feel sort of messes with the flow that Soul Calibur's famous
That is
for.
my biggest complaint. The stop and go combat.
It's not bad, but it doesn't feel like
Soul Calibur.
that much. And like it's not like I'm down on the game to the point that I'm like I'm not buying this kind of thing. But it's just it didn't feel, if you played enough Soul Calibur, you have an expectation of a feel.
It's
And
rhythmic. The combat is rhythmic. It's all
And
about that timing of the weapon.
And it's definitely different. You even see it here where all this sort of like movement and that kind of thing's happening. It's just the flow is gone. The flow is not happening. And like I guess maybe you feel like you need to add something like that to change it up because you can't just make Soul Calibur again because that's a 15-year-old game
Yeah.
or whatever. But I don't know. It just didn't.
I think that'd be okay. With
outside
that.
of my Geralt fandom, which I was like, oh, this is a really cool way to interpret this character in this form. I was just like, Like it doesn't really look any better than Soul. It doesn't look bad, but it looks better than Soul Calibur 5. And in the face of that Dead or Alive 6 trailer, it
Yeah.
feels like this is a little. It feels like this is a little like a half measure.
I'd
you know
agree
what I
with
mean?
that. And here's something interesting. So while I was waiting to play and watching other people play, the slowdown was happening literally like every 3 to 4 seconds.
Yeah, well, it's part of certain move stuff.
And then I played, and both me and the guy I was playing against, we were doing it like every 3 or 4 seconds. But last night, I was watching Bandai Namco play it, and they hardly ever did it.
Interesting.
So I don't know if ultimately once you get good at the game, it's something that you don't use that often, but everybody on the show floor, it was just happening over and over again. And I was like, this is like a slow motion fighting game. What is going on with this? So maybe ultimately it's a thing where we're all just noobs and we don't really get the game yet, and that's why it was being played that way.
There's an element of having to learn it. I mean, certainly by the end of my second match, I kind of understood better how the interrupts were working and how you can counter, a faster attack will counter a slower attack because of when the hurt box starts to happen. And my assumptions about certain moves Geralt had were often wrong in comparison to what people were doing with Mitsurugi against me or whatever. And so that's a learning curve. But it definitely feels different from your average Soul Calibur, and that's going to be something you either adjust to or you just can't handle.
Yeah.
And I feel like I can adjust to it. I feel like I would need more time, but just the fact, and maybe this is like old man prejudice, but Soul Calibur used to be like, oh my god, I've never seen something this gorgeous. On the Dreamcast, it was Soul Calibur was a
best
cutting
looking
edge
fighter game ever.
Yeah, no pun intended. Cutting edge graphics. And this just feels like it feels like an expansion to 5.
It feels lazy to me.
Yeah.
Probably the best way I could describe it.
And I mean, certainly Tekken 7 didn't look like that.
Yeah.
In terms of graphical fidelity. It's like, I just feel like, I don't know, it didn't blow my mind. And I was hoping, I wasn't even really expecting to think better or worse of it. I was expecting to just be, I want to try Geralt, and I'll play a little Soul Calibur. I'll be like sitting in a warm bath, and we'll break from
comfort
E3.
food, yeah.
And it wasn't. It was like, this is off. This is strange.
Yep. So we'll see when we play the final version. E3, you're getting that vertical slice. You have that limited amount of time to play. So sometimes your impressions can go a little askew compared to when you finally get the retail version of the game. So we'll see. Your second and final up.
My second up is Dreams, which I got a very long demo of.
Which most people would never even know was at the show.
Yeah, it was a subdued presence, let's put it that way.
Did
a lot of interstitial stuff during the press conference, but it was not highlighted. But I got to sit down and play around with this for about 30 minutes. Played through some of the campaign stuff they have, which is like all these 3 things. It's like the cutesy bear and the fox, and then the sort of noir thing, and the what was it?
I have no idea.
This techno thing, this thing where you're jumping around doing this virus stuff. This is more of a platformer kind of thing. Whereas the noir thing is actually a point-and-click adventure. Sort of
showing some flexibility.
And it's, I mean, there were people walking behind me and who were watching and every time it would change things, they're like, is this the same game? It's the versatility is really impressive. So, and we played a bunch of the little kind of mini games that people had made in Media Molecule. They'd made the various things. Some is really impressive. Some of it's just you can make this with this. There was a space fighter game that was a lot of arcade space fighter, but there was also this one where you controlled this big kind of Skylab looking thing, and you had to maneuver it with thrusters through real physics to try to dock with this space station, which I did not succeed in doing. But it's there. You can do it, and that was built by their web developer. Uh-huh. It was like this guy never touched a video game engine, any creation tools before, and he made this space physics simulator, and it's just They took me into the tool stuff, the creation stuff, and when I saw the demos on Sony stage and on the live stream and stuff, it felt really intimidating. It felt overwhelming. There's a lot of very intricate stuff. You can control stuff down to almost any level of granularity you can think of. But the thing is, everything sort of works the same. It's almost like a unified control scheme. So rotating stuff all works the same, sculpting stuff more or less works the same, cloning stuff more or less. So once you kind of get your hands and you're onto something and your brain around it, you'll be able to adapt that knowledge to the other elements of the creation system. I don't know I did ask them, like, what percentage of players do you think are really going to dig into these creation tools? And they're like, we don't know.
They should know, though.
They should
based
know. I'm
upon
sure someone
LVP.
knows, but
Yeah.
like the audio developer isn't going to know
Right,
those
right.
numbers, right?
Speaking of which, you can make like tracks
Yes.
from scratch.
If you're into music,
There's like a DAW in this.
Yeah,
Like
if
where you
you're-
can make your own songs.
if you're into music, like you are, you can absolutely. I mean, the sound library and the instrument banks are gigantic. Just about any kind of sound you can think of, and you can bring it into the music editor. You can duplicate it. You can flange it. You can pitch shift it. You can play it yourself with notes all in the controller. Or you can use the analog sticks to kind of scratch tweak stuff and mess with things. I mean, and all the music is laid out kind of like an editing timeline. Like, and you can make it gigantic. They have you open anything like that and it's just gigantic. You can mess with it, change it, pitch, whatever. Take chunks out, like freeze that, use it in whatever. It's astounding. It's astoundingly powerful audio tools. Which is a different thing than like sculpting and rigging the characters.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But if you just want to make music in this and put it up for people to then pull down and use in their games they're making, like you can do that. It's very free for stuff like that. And like I get it better now. Like I understand more like, and like the temptation is certainly there for me to sort of dig in and play around until I make like a Wing Commander level or something for myself. But like I mean, I don't know how long it would take. That might take like 3 weeks of messing with this stuff and learning it. But you could see that the people that were demoing it and had dealt with this stuff a lot were like boom, 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 boom. They knew how everything worked and they could do it really fast.
It's a big barrier of entry, though.
And a lot it is.
And I can also see now why it's been delayed so many times.
Right. But it is what it says it is. I think that's the most important thing. Is like it is what it says it is, and if you have the patience and I guess to some degree the talent, you will be able to make something that's in your head in this game. Like it's the creation tools really are that versatile. Like when you see all these different art styles and all these.
It's gonna be a small fraction of people who do amazing stuff with this.
And I think that's the key. Is
for
like
the rest of us.
You're going to benefit. Yeah, the rest of us will benefit from some of the most ridiculous and crazy and creative things that people do. And like you can just make animation in it. Like there's it doesn't have to be interactive. Like you can just make a little movie. And people were doing that. They had a game jam. I was there when I think this has gone around Twitter through their Twitter since then, but. I was there when the first videos of the game jam. Somebody made a bodybuilder penguin that was just shitting out other penguins and like standing on his head and pooping out more penguins and stuff. And like that came through, and all the Media Molecule people were just like, "What have we done?" Like,
it's gonna get way worse than that.
And there is I guess gonna be a. I'm like, what about like adult stuff and like weird stuff and violent stuff and like what? He's like, there's. I guess they're thinking about a subscription thing where you could have adult content or something.
Interesting.
So you'd have to opt in like monetarily to like see that stuff.
Got ya. That makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, my second up is, and this may surprise some people, is Kingdom Hearts 3.
Interesting.
Had never played it, had just watched video, I've seen B-roll of it being played.
And you've certainly never played the series to any great
No,
degree.
I mean, we played it on the one Patreon drive stream, and after like an hour, I was like, get me away from this freaking game. I think it's a 3D platformer in pretty much every way, except it also has RPG elements. It's kind of like a 3D platformer RPG hybrid. I was really impressed with the gameplay variety in the game, much like a 3D platformer, but also how well each style of gameplay was handled. In the E3 demo, I played a boss fight, with this huge, gigantic, like stone golem, that has a part in it where you get on a roller coaster and it turns into like an on-rail shooter. There was platforming, there was hack and slash combat, there was traversal, there was first-person shooting. There's a section where you get in a mech and it turns into an FPS, and all of it felt great. Also, it is one gorgeous game. Absolutely gorgeous. They had this game playing on Xbox One X, also a trend pretty much across the entire show floor, I might add. All third-party stuff, unless someone has a deal with Sony, was being played on Xbox One X at the show. So you can see the publisher is starting to figure out, hey, our games are going to look best on this. Like, think about that, Matt. Kingdom Hearts 3. First of all, go back to like the last two Kingdom Hearts. I don't remember those ever being playable on an E3 show floor. Ever.
I can't remember. That was a long time ago.
Yeah, but I don't remember
I
them
feel like
ever
Kingdom
being
Hearts
out.
2 was pretty much always shown behind closed doors.
Yeah, this one, huge demo, just put on the floor, playing it on Xbox. This is 100% a PlayStation brand.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I walked up to the kiosk
I mean,
and I was
they're
like,
putting out a
really? I'm playing this on an Xbox controller?
I mean, they're putting out a Kingdom Hearts PlayStation. It comes with the whole series.
Right,
you know?
yeah, but not in their booth, man.
Little surprised we're not getting any. Didn't get any announcement of the HD collection coming to
Yeah.
Xbox, but
It may come later. I don't know. But I had a great time playing this game. I had somebody, again, over my shoulder helping me with like the RPG stuff. Like, there's a lot of depth to the combat in the game that most people don't even utilize. Like, while I was waiting to play, I watched other people play, and they just kept hacking and slashing. This guy started telling me about, so like after a while you'll build up a meter and you get these crazy over-the-top attacks, like a little icon will pop up at the bottom left. Most people who are playing the game were just ignoring them. And once I knew about them, I'm watching them play. I'm like, bro, you have like supers just waiting for you to fire them off. And once I played, I started using them, and the combat just gets insane. So I was really pleasantly surprised by this game. I've never been a Kingdom Hearts fan. I wasn't very excited for this one before E3, but now I am.
well, good luck understanding what the hell is going on.
I don't know that I even care about that, to be honest. Like, I just really enjoyed the gameplay and how things were constantly just changing and switching up. It never really settled
I mean,
into
that's
this.
Kingdom Hearts. Like,
Yeah.
they've done that for a long. I mean, Kingdom Hearts 1 is a little bit anomalous because it's so straightforward an action RPG,
Yeah.
and Kingdom Hearts 2 started mixing it up a little more, making the boss fights a little more. Some of it was QTE driven, but it was more like kind of epic moment stuff. And
Yeah.
then, like, as you get further into, like, you know, something like Dream Drop Distance, they mess with the format even more. So it's interesting to see someone who like doesn't know the series kind of being like, oh, look at how much variety there is. And
Yeah.
like the people that I know who are huge Kingdom Hearts fans played it, and it's like, oh, it's just all the same variety again. You know, it's like it's too.
That's like an oxymoron,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Well, I'm partly referencing a Bugs Bunny cartoon. On that.
Oh.
Every night it's the same thing. Variety. I want something different.
Yeah.
And but I saw it's like it just feels, you know, it feels very true to the, you know, the last couple of games, Birth by Sleep and Dream Drop Distance, both of which are apparently must plays if you want to understand anything happening in this game.
I'm not doing that. Although with this summer coming up, I'm going to have time to.
I am curious what if the Xbox version will come with like a little like movie disc or something of like, here's what happened before this.
Yeah.
So you can try to
It
catch
might.
up.
Yeah.
With some, you know, like I feel like for Kingdom Hearts you might need some of that.
It'll be the best-selling Kingdom Hearts ever, guaranteed.
I don't see how it
On
couldn't
multiple platforms, game looks fabulous.
be. Got Frozen in it.
Yeah, that'll do it. All right, what's,
I think actually the most impressive thing in there I think is I think the Tangled stuff
yeah.
is I am just floored by how they nailed the look of that movie in that game.
I
It's
think
incredible.
everything is nailed. I
They
think
all
the
did it, but
characters look
Tangled
great.
for some reason just makes me go, man, they just nailed it. Like
Yeah.
I look at like the scene where she like twirls around in the trail, like if you showed me that and told me that was from the movie, I might believe you in the,
Yeah.
under,
Oh,
under
it
the right
looks that good.
circumstances.
Yeah.
Like it's really authentic. I'm very impressed by all their graphical stuff.
And if you're wondering why we're not showing B-roll of Kingdom Hearts, it's because Square
They
Enix
flag it.
has also decided to pull a Nintendo and flag pretty much everything, all their games.
Well,
So
either them or Disney. You know,
yeah,
there's-
it could be one or the other. But I mean, Square Enix does it with some of its other games
True.
too. So we just decided not to run B-roll.
Well, you can't let anybody see unauthorized photos of
Yeah.
Octopath Traveler.
Yeah. So while we sit here and talk about how great
How great
the
it
game
looks,
looks, you just have to use your imagination. I'll never understand the logic. Anyway, it's time for our final downs. Maybe we should have swapped them and did the up last. But anyway, our final downs. What's yours?
My final down is Fallout 76, which I guess is a little disingenuous because technically I guess we're supposed to pretend we didn't know about it beforehand. But we knew
did
more or
know
less
about
what
it,
was
though.
happening because of the leaks, and,
Yeah.
and they did their reveal through that was an official reveal, so it counts.
Yeah.
And I liked a lot of what I saw in terms of visuals. I mean, like the premise is cool. West Virginia's fun. A fun setting. I've never been to West Virginia. Maybe it's not fun. Like, you would know better than
I was born there, but moved away.
What does that say? Yeah.
I still have relatives there, though, that I visit sometimes, and it's not an especially exciting state.
Yeah. I heard there's some concern about like among West Virginians about like it has to always be online, and I guess West Virginia doesn't have the greatest online infrastructure.
No, that's
in the
absolutely
world.
true. That is
So
absolutely
ironically,
true.
the people that like might be most excited about playing a game in their home state might not get to play it
That's absolutely
very
right. Also,
reliably.
net neutrality there is a big deal because most communities in that state only have one internet service provider, and now they're all worried that net neutrality gets repealed on Monday, that those ISPs can just start jacking up the cost and there's nothing they can do about it. So yeah, some definitely some concerns. But you know what? As soon as that press conference ended, I got text messages from all my relatives. They're like freaking out. I mean, think about it. In West Virginia, it's a huge story. Like they're talking about how it could improve tourism. There's never been a game based in West Virginia. So the whole state is just like losing their minds over it, hoping that somehow it could help the state because the state itself is very poor. Most of the people there are very, very poor and have very little to nothing. So, and I can tell you from some of the presentations they did during their press conference, the towns that they showed, it's insane that they showed those towns. Like they show one town called Grafton. I know exactly where Grafton is and what Grafton is, and it is literally like a one-stoplight town. It is this little dinky place. Like it blew my mind to see like the city sign for Grafton in that. So yeah, the whole state of West Virginia right now is losing it over this.
So that's cool, but I just that all that I enjoy, but
Yeah.
like the the multiplayer mode aspect is not appealing to me. I know Pete and Todd went on and on about you can play it solo, but like if it's always online, you're not playing it solo. You can just play it by yourself,
Right,
which
yeah.
is different than
is,
what
yeah.
you're at, And I just feel like I'm so that kind of game is anathema to me, and I said it on the analysis thing too. I've never played a Fallout game and thought, what would make this better? Other people.
Yeah.
And there's nothing about the presentation that made me feel any better about that feeling. And they haven't shown it being played.
It
They
wasn't
haven't
at
shown-
E3.
there was nothing there. So like,
It was basically like a booth where you could get photos taken with
Yeah,
props.
yeah,
The game was not there.
and like if you're a Fallout fan, that was cool. But it's like I still don't know anything more about how the game works or what you're gonna do.
It's
and
weird though. I mean, the
how-
game's coming out pretty soon,
Yeah.
and it was not playable at E3.
I just, maybe it just doesn't demo well. Maybe they didn't want to have to, bother
Set
with
up the
that
network
many
and
network
have
stuff. Yeah.
have people back in Maryland like to play
Yeah.
with the people at E3.
It just, I am less excited about it now just because it has all these elements that I just don't identify with Fallout. And maybe in the end they'll make it work. I mean, those guys are really good at what they do, but my confidence is pretty low on this game, or was going in, and it's not any better now. It's probably a little lower now especially because it seems like they're nervous about all the same things
No,
I
you're right.
am.
Yeah, yeah.
So
a
I
little
guess
disconcerting.
I guess we'll see. The other problem is that they had the power armor helmet that comes in the Super Duper, and I got to see it up close, and I guarantee you that thing is not going to fit over my giant head. So like the Super Duper Collector's Edition is completely out for me. It narrows at the top. It would stop right here. I promise. It would stop right at my nose. Like that's as far down as it would go.
My final down, I'm cheating a little bit here. I am not picking a game that I'm down on. I'm actually picking a publisher. And actually not even just a publisher, a platform holder, and that platform holder is Sony. Sony is starting to get full of itself again, just like it did during the PlayStation 2 era, transitioning into the PlayStation 3 era. It thought it could do no wrong. It was on top of the world. It was winning. And what did it do? It crapped the bed with the PlayStation 3 because it got too cocky. And I'm starting to see PlayStation 2 Sony in PlayStation 4 Sony again. So obviously there was a huge kerfuffle across the week over Sony's handling of Fortnite because a lot of people signed up to play Fortnite first on PlayStation 4. All their stats and everything are tied to that account. Now they cannot use that account on other platforms. So if they want to play it on the Switch, they have to start their account all over and start from scratch. And Sony basically isn't budging on it. It's just saying, too bad. Essentially what it's saying is, we're winning, we'll do whatever the hell we want. And to me, that's the exact wrong attitude. It's the exact opposite attitude of what Microsoft is doing. Right now, Microsoft, ironically, is the most consumer-friendly platform holder of all three of them. Nintendo's kind of in the middle, and then there's Sony all the way on the other end of the extreme.
I did like the UK Xbox Twitter account tweeted, hey, Nintendo UK, want to play some Fortnite later?
Yeah.
Like they were going for it.
They should. They absolutely should. And then the press conference that Sony had, self-indulgent. They're like, oh, we just want people to hang out and check out. No, dude. Like, people just want to see your games. They want to know information about your games. They want to connect with the people who are making these games. Their press conference was completely impersonal because they essentially forced the live attendees to go into these experiences for each game. Like, if you read any of the write-ups from the people that were there afterwards, they were all just like, we had no idea what was going on. Nobody told the people that were showing up there what was going to happen. They were just getting herded. They're like, okay, now everybody needs to go this way. And everyone's like, what? Where this way? And like the journalists who were there was no way for them to write while they were there. They couldn't sit down. Like,
They got their laptops out.
Yeah.
And I mean, people nest at these things.
Absolutely. Well, you have to. I
Yeah.
mean, if you're live blogging it or whatever, or you're trying to file your report right afterwards, you have to write while it's happening. And so all that was stripped away. And Sony was herding people around to these different... It was just bad. And again, self-indulgent, self-important. We're going to do things the way we want. We don't care how it screws other people or how it affects other people, as long as we're okay in our little warm blanket that we built around ourselves. And I just think that that's wrong. And then Sean Layden, after the press conference, when journalists were saying, yo, like, what's up with all this? What are you guys doing? He basically was just like telling people to F off. He's like, we'll do whatever we want, and people will like it. Like, he's like Kutaragi all over again.
$599 US.
Right. It's like it's all coming back around full circle, and that is what led to the PlayStation 3 and $599 US and a piece of hardware that no one wanted to work on.
And what's the, I don't know, like with all the Fortnite stuff, and like it's even being reported on in mainstream news now.
Yeah.
What is Sony's win here? Like, what is the
end game? What is it going?
Yeah,
what is it
what's
trying
the
to do?
advantage of dying on this hill? Like, where are
No
they?
idea.
What are they preserving? What do they think they're getting out of it?
Other
Because it
than
looks to
them-
me like they're just pissing off one of the biggest fan bases in gaming right now.
They're just trying to throw their weight around. Like, it's insane. It's like they're acting like an infantile child.
Like the instant you think you don't need those big third-party things is the instant you get in trouble. Like they did that with the PlayStation 3, and they're doing it again.
It's funny how it took 4 years. It took 4 years for Sony to go from humbled to right back to the way it was before.
I mean, when even Nintendo is being more open about their online play than you are, you really should look in the mirror. You know,
You really should. And but Sony will argue, well, they need customers, and Microsoft needs customers. I don't care.
it's like so do you.
Yeah,
like the winds have shifted many times, and
Yeah.
like the company that broke into the industry by paying people to be on their system instead of Nintendo's back in the '90s should really know how fickle this industry can get.
Yeah, I mean, it went from the PS2 to the PS3.
Yeah. Well, look at what system everybody's demoing their stuff on this year.
It's the tide's already starting to turn. It's like, it's just tone deaf, arrogance. I never thought I'd see this from Sony again. I thought it had learned its lesson the hard way. It seemed that it had. The beginning of this generation, they were the consumer friendly. And it's so funny too, if you go back and remember, like when Xbox One was announced and everyone's like, oh, it's anti-consumer and Sony's pro-consumer. And I remember telling people like, don't jump the gun here, because Sony had the advantage of watching everybody react negatively to Microsoft's press conference and then magically flip the switch and say, we're going to do everything opposite. It's not... People have a way of thinking that companies care about them, and they don't. All they care about is their wallet.
Sony
That's
had a
it.
similar DRM scheme ready to go.
Absolutely,
if they wanted
and
to flip
bailed
that
on it.
switch. And they saw, nope, Microsoft was the canary in that coal mine, and they saw not to do that, so they were able to do their mic drop in the press conference.
That's why fanboyism drives me up the wall, because these people are delusional. They think that these companies really give a crap about them. They do not. All they care about is how they can squeeze another dollar out of your wallet. Once you accept that, gaming becomes so much better. You no longer have this weird mental thing in your head where you're like, well, that's a PlayStation game, or that's or whatever. It's just, it's a great video game. Like, break on through to the other side, people. Seriously, it'll change your life. It'll make your life in gaming so much better. And it will put people like Sony, and look, it's Sony right now. It could be Microsoft again in 3 years. It could be Nintendo in 2 years. All of them are the same. They're all just trying to find a way to squeeze as much money out of you as they can. They don't care about you. All they care about is your money. So just play the great games. It doesn't matter what platform they're on. Just play the great games, and you'll be much happier.
Poorer, but...
/diatribe. Over. All right, we're going to move on to our actual Best of E3 awards. I think we actually have like 12 or 13 categories to get through here. We're going to kick things off with the best debut. We spoke earlier about how there just really weren't a lot of debuts. It used to be E3 was just loaded with debuts, but now, I mean, it seems like it's not just Nintendo who really says that, because that was the other thing Nintendo tried to say, is like, well, you know, we want to show games that people are going to be able to play soon. Well, what was up with that Daemon versus or Cross Machina that doesn't come out till 2019?
Right.
But Nintendo was trying to say, oh, we didn't show Metroid because it's not coming this year. It showed a ton of games that aren't coming this year.
Yeah, they can't really hide behind the 2018 thing.
Yeah, it's total malarkey, and it's not just Nintendo. A lot of publishers do it. But anyway, there were not a lot of legitimate debuts at this year's E3, so it was slim pickings. Matt, what was your choice?
I picked Resident Evil 2 Remake.
That's a very good pick.
Because we had not seen it before. It's still a debut. I mean, there was a lot of chatter that it existed.
Yep.
But I didn't quite call what this was when they first started running it. And
Nobody did.
And then I realized what it was, and I was like, oh, cool. And this is exactly what I would want a Resident Evil 2 Remake to be. It's full 3D. It's a full reimagining in 3D that plays, you know, kind of like Resident Evil 4. Or apparently there's a fixed camera version if you want to play it like, you know, like
old school.
Like we still can't make proper games and have to use pre-rendered backgrounds. But as you know, as someone who's kind of fallen out of the Resident Evil thing, like this like, despite how odd some of the characters look, this kind of got me back on board, because the Resident Evil 2 is probably my favorite Resident Evil game pre-4. And
My favorite RE games are Resident Evil 4, Resident Evil 2. And now Resident Evil 2 plays like Resident Evil 4.
Right. And like, 4 and 2 are probably really the only two I really like. I really liked Code Veronica back when it was out, but I tried to play that when it came to the 360, and I was like,
Back when it was out, I thought it was amazing. Now.
And I mean, I have two
It did
friends.
not age
I had
well.
two friends online who are giant horror game fans, and they love Resident Evil, and they make fun of me for not wanting to play the old Resident Evil because I think they're just outdated and they don't work anymore.
They are, yeah, absolutely.
But they tried, like, and I bounced right off the Code Veronica Xbox 360 version. So they're like, oh, and like 2 days later, they're like, yeah, we stopped.
Yeah, it's
like,
so
it couldn't,
bad.
it doesn't work anymore. But I still always like 2. I like Leon. I mean, Leon's probably my favorite.
Even though you can't hardly tell it's him.
Yeah, I mean, no one else has that hair.
Yeah, I mean, the
face is
haircut gives it
different.
away, but otherwise, everything else looks different. The color of his hair, his face.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, Claire looks different too, but like Claire you can kind of chalk up to be, well, it's Resident Evil 2 versus now.
Right.
Whereas Leon sort of had an established look in 4 that they don't seem to be matching very much
not
here.
at all.
But that's okay. You don't look at their face that much.
That's okay, because the game looks freaking awesome. It looks freaking... Dude, the gore. Whoa.
Yeah.
Dude, there's a lot. I think the scene's in the trailer. I can't remember if it's in the trailer or if it's in the demo. But there's one scene where this dude is like torn in half. And the detail of the intestines and everything is disgusting.
Like it's
they're like glistening.
It's well beyond what I thought a Resident Evil game would do.
Oh, they have gone above and beyond.
But it works because like that's kind of, you know, that's the level of gore you got in the cutscenes in the original games.
Yeah.
Like equivalent for the time.
Right.
And I feel like, yeah, you got to step it up now, and
Absolutely.
they have, and it looks good. I mean, Resident Evil 2 almost made it into my up-down, except I felt that didn't make any sense because I didn't really have an opinion of it because it didn't exist yet. You know?
I'm really hyped for this. Like, really, really hyped for this. It's one of my favorite games from E3 2018. My pick, just to keep the Capcom love going, Devil May Cry 5. Also, we had a game page up on Sifted for a while, so there was rumors swirling around about this showing up, but we had not seen anything of it.
I mean, rumors have swirled since like last August.
I mean, a lot of it was just wishful thinking.
Yeah, but like, you know, the leak that happened with the development materials were kind of like, okay, this exists, but we just gotta wait for Capcom to decide to tell us about it. It's nice to finally have it out there.
It looks awesome. I think it's giving fans what they've wanted. I know most DMC fans did not like DMC. I did. I thought it was a great game.
I think it's a great combat action game. But I understand people who don't think it's much of a Devil May Cry game.
Absolutely. But this game is giving them exactly what they want. You're getting Neo, you're getting Dante, more of the tongue-in-cheek comedy that the series is known for instead of the more serious tone that DMC had. Graphically, the game looks great. You know the combat's going to be awesome because it's DMC. I was not a huge fan of the first 2 DMCs. I felt a lot of it relied on style over substance.
Nobody's a fan of the second one.
Right, because it was probably the worst sequel in the history of video games.
It's up there.
But like DMC4, the combat in that game won me over. Like I didn't really care about the aesthetics as much as the combat system, and it is crazy deep. So now I feel like this game has both. It's got the great aesthetics. It's got the tongue-in-cheek humor that it had before, which to me was the best part of the first game. And it's got the awesome combat system that's been evolved over like 4 or 5 entries now. So I'm all over it. I think it's going to be awesome. I'm really excited for it. And like I said, I'm not one of the world's biggest DMC fans to begin with. So
I do think Dante looks weird.
yeah, I mean, he looks older.
He's very old. Like,
Rougher.
Grizzled old man. I mean, his late 30s.
And they don't show him much in the trailer either, which is odd.
No.
It's like they don't show him until the very end when he's on the motorcycle or whatever.
Yeah.
Because I was worried watching it for the first time. I'm like, no, they're going to keep him out again, and then nope.
Well, I
he's in there.
figured you probably aren't playing as him much, but maybe as an unlockable. But because it seems like Nero's arm is very integral to the combat system.
No, you're right, which does have me worried a bit. Why do you think they've moved towards Nero so much?
I don't know. I guess because like they wanted to change it up a bit, and also because Dante, by anime standards, Dante is ancient. He's like almost 40.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can see it, and like you look at him here, and you're just like, oh my God, Dante, what happened to you?
Well, he's been
Yeah.
hunting demons for all his entire life.
Yeah, but that doesn't age anybody else in Japanese animation. It's, you know, I think they're kind of using it. They've done a lot with Dante, and I think they're just sort of using him as sort of the old badass like mentor slash.
He'll come
like,
in and set him straight or
yeah,
some
pretty
crap.
much.
Yeah.
Or you know, I think also the implication is that like Dante's so good now, like we couldn't play him. Like you know, you have to be able to fail in a video game, and Dante doesn't do that anymore.
That's funny. All right, it's time to move on to the best graphics at E3 2018. Matt, what is your pick for the best looking game at the show?
My pick for best looking game, and I feel like I'm breaking from just about everybody else in the industry here, is Ghost of Tsushima.
I think that's a completely valid pick.
I do think if you're talking pure tech, I think Cyberpunk probably takes it, but Ghost of Tsushima takes so many cues from cinema, and like is so much like, especially color-wise, is such a love letter to Kurosawa and how he used the color. Like this is more striking to me aesthetically.
well, look,
than,
you swore up and down that it was a PlayStation 5 game.
which is not.
They confirmed 100%.
I was told by the founder of Sucker Punch, no, this is a PlayStation 4 game. We swear, but thank you.
Yeah,
like,
running on PS4 Pro. All these visuals you're seeing
yep.
right now, PS4 Pro.
So Sucker Punch stays winning.
Absolutely.
And I think
Game is freaking gorgeous.
I will probably concede if someone was to say like, well, this technically this is better in Cyberpunk, but man, nothing pleases my eyes more at this E3 than this game.
Oh, it's beautiful. Just scene after scene.
Yeah,
it's just one thing after
the
another.
sword fight in the red leaves is like with the backlighting and the depth of field, and slowly like the arrows are coming through because the Mongols are showing up, and you don't have much more time before they're on you, and so
Yeah.
I mean, it's just it all just amazing.
Well, that last scene that we were showing right there,
yeah,
I mean,
through the field and
I mean, it's just that is Sucker Punch saying, "Look at this."
Yep.
I mean, maybe in most games they'd show him riding for like 3 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, "Oh no, we're gonna ride through this for
Yeah.
a good like 45 seconds to a minute."
Look
to
at
show
how
we're
the grass bounces off the horse's feet. You know how
Absolutely.
long it took us to do that.
Well, look how each flower moves
Yep.
independently of every other flower, and there's just millions of
Well, in
them.
this, there's 30,000 leaves in this scene.
Yep.
And you can trample them into the ground and like write things in the ground with them and stuff.
It's a technical marvel.
incredible.
It's amazing. Yeah, absolutely. I don't. There's nothing wrong with that pick, Matt. Nothing wrong at all.
No, I don't think so, but like there's, Cyberpunk has really dominated the kind of the buzz of the show.
Yeah.
And Cyberpunk's way up there for me too, but like this just made my jaw drop in a way that just because of the aesthetic choices on
Yeah.
display. I love it.
Beautiful. All right, my pick is, surprise, surprise, Cyberpunk 2077. I saw an hour-long demo of this game yesterday.
I was also counting on you to pick that.
Of
so I could-
course,
so I
yeah.
could do.
And I will say that this trailer does not do the game justice, Matt. I am giddy talking about Cyberpunk 2077. It is I would say, in my estimation, the best looking video game I've ever seen with my own two eyes. It is incredible, absolutely incredible looking. What struck me the most and hit me the hardest whenever I was watching the demo was the first time you go into the city. And there's like this Times Square-ish area that you go into, and it is just flooded with NPCs. And you think about games like this, typically open world games with a big draw distance and with lots of NPCs, they're always like robotic. And if you actually like kind of follow one around, inevitably they'll do like the whole heel turn thing and they're robotic. Every NPC in this game is doing something, and it means something.
Something that tells a story about.
Absolutely. And you can stop and you can listen into like 2 characters talking to each other, 3 characters, and it's not like they're just standing there with this like blank stare on their face or you know, like just doing these generic animations where they're moving their hands and necks. They're all animated and they're all talking and it's amazing. I don't even know how to describe how awesome this game looks, Matt. It is like the weapons in the game. The weapons in this game are insane. Like they have one weapon that you can use bank shots. Literally, you can shoot any object and bank it like a pool ball at the enemy. There's another gun that has like heat-sinking bullets, but they're these crazy like phosphorus charge shots that are almost like little mini comets that will curve around architecture. And dude, this game is so awesome. I actually have something from that demo that I'm trying to figure out what to do with it. We weren't allowed to take any video or any still images of the demo, but I recorded the entire audio from the demo, all 50 minutes of it. And so I'm trying to figure out what I can do with that. Like I could just put the trailer on loop for 50 minutes and just let people listen to it like it's almost like a podcast maybe. But there
So
are,
it's like them giving the demo and talking.
exactly, yeah. And there are moments, there's like stretches where it'll go a minute and all you just hear is gunfire before the guy will say anything again. So maybe in the comments for this episode when we archive it, let me know what you guys would want me to do with that. I recorded it on my iPhone X, and I haven't listened to it yet. I don't know how good the audio quality is, but I was pretty close to the speaker. You should be able to hear him pretty clearly. So just let me know what you guys would want me to do with it, and I'll do that with it. But the character models, dude, there's tons of nudity in this as well. Like the demo starts at the beginning.
Cyberpunk.
The demo starts at the beginning of the game, and you pick 2 characters. You can pick a male or a female to play as. There's lots of nudity in the game, and the character models, even when naked, are quite impressive. I don't know. I could go on about this game's graphics. I'm going to talk about it a little bit later, so I'll just close it off there. It's the best looking video game I've ever seen. I'll just say that. There's just... And I don't know. I'm assuming they were running it on some crazy PC.
Yeah.
It definitely wasn't running on PS4.
It's interesting that they've changed to Unreal.
Yeah.
From the Red Engine.
Yeah.
I presume because Unreal is kind of more suited for a shooter. Scenario, like whereas the Red Engine was more built for a third-person adventure-y kind of thing.
Probably, but I'm assuming it was running on like a beastly PC.
Yeah, of course it was.
And there were a couple anomalies. Like there was a couple times where I saw like the detail in a building like pop in.
Little proof that it's real.
Yeah, actually, yeah, I guess you're right. That is good. It is proof that it's real. So it's not perfect yet, and obviously it's a long ways away.
It won't be perfect when it comes back.
No, it's
open world games never are.
Yeah.
But they come real close sometimes.
Yeah. But anyway, I want to talk more about that game later on, so I'm going to close it off there. But yeah, in my opinion, the best looking game at E3 2018. All right, let's move on to best first person shooter. By the way,
pickings were a little slim on this one. I thought.
By the way, if you don't know, Cyberpunk is a first person shooter. It's more first person shooter than RPG when you talk about like the combat. It's the enemies aren't really bullet sponges. It's not like Destiny or anything like that where you have to shoot a guy for like a week to kill him. Like it really is just like a first-person shooter, except it has all the RPG systems underneath it.
Well, I'm figuring it's going to be something kind of in the Mass Effect vein, where there's a lot of discussion and talking and decisions and choices, and although it's going to matter more, it seems like in this.
Dude, the way a mission can branch is insane. Again, I want to hold this stuff for later to talk about it, but But yeah, it's but the gunplay, the gameplay itself, it's like a first-person shooter.
Yeah, well, it's like you don't expect it to be like Fallout, where like
No.
you're vatsing constantly
No,
because
no.
the gunplay doesn't work properly, you know?
No, this is legit first-person shooter
Yeah.
gunplay. So I almost honestly picked Cyberpunk 2077 as best first-person shooter.
I thought about it, but I didn't want to have that argument.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I actually felt like giving this game some love.
Me too. Yep. So we actually picked the same game for this one, and that is
Rage
2. My opinion, hands down, the best first-person shooter there. It also has the benefit of...
This is also almost one of my ups.
Yeah. Yeah, the game is pretty freaking sweet. The demo that they had playable there was a little weird because all the trailers showed this open world, like get in the Doom buggy and have vehicular combat battles. The demo that I played in Bethesda's booth was literally all indoors in this like facility. And then at the very end, you come to where you can see the door opening and you can see the desert out there, and it ends. This like massive thing comes down from the sky and plants in the desert,
Probably like the tutorial.
and then the demo closes. Maybe, I don't know.
It seemed really early.
So all I really got to experience was the gunplay, and oh wow. Like, I started thinking about the other shooters. It's like Black Ops 4 or Battlefield 5. They're exactly what you expect them to be. This game can be played in myriad different ways. I mean, you can just stay on the ground if you want to, because you have the firepower to do that. But it really starts to get interesting when you start using the double jump that you have, like you're seeing right now. It completely changes the way the game plays. And the cool part about it, too, is the enemies use it. They also have kind of jump packs that gives the whole game just this unpredictable nature to it. Not as unpredictable as the first one. That's one thing I would say. The AI in this is not up to the standards of the first game as far as, like, what are they going to do? I have no idea. Because they would do crazy stuff, like run up the walls and, like, get on top of like a railing and like run along the railing. Like, they don't do anything like that in this one, although maybe eventually they will. But for right now, they don't. But the gunplay and the combat just feels so good, and it's so different than any other shooter that was at the show that I just had to give it the award.
Yeah, it's way more expansive than I thought it was going to be, and it's actually, the funny thing is, like, of all the games that aren't making it this year, this one maybe disappoints me the most.
Yeah.
Because I really would have liked to have played that sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not expecting it to be like a mind-blowing, like, artistic experience, but it sure looks like fun.
It is fun. Did you not get to play it?
I did not get to play it.
Yeah, it's a blast. Even though I wasn't outside, like, doing, you know, the stuff I thought I was going to be doing, I had a ton of fun playing it. Easily the best first-person shooter I played at the show, and I did play Black Ops 4. I walked up at the Sony booth and just, there was nobody waiting for it.
No
I
one-
walked right up and played Black Ops 4 in Sony's booth.
If you want to play Black Ops 4, the new Destiny expansion, the Sony booth was right there
You could
for you.
walk right up. And
Yep.
meanwhile, just, you know, in the other hall, if you went over to Activision's booth,
Activision's,
you had to
yeah.
wait like 2 hours to play
Yeah.
either one of them. So, yeah, I think Sony, like, ran everybody off out of its booth, and then that hooked us up if we wanted to actually play, like, Black Ops 4 or
Yeah.
Destiny.
Rage 2 is also single-player focused, which
Yeah.
earns a bonus for me.
Yeah, you're not a big multiplayer shooter
No.
guy. All right, let's move on to Best Indie Game of E3 2018. Matt, what was your pick?
My pick was NeoCab, which there are actually a couple like a kind of story-driven like
Uber
cab
driver games.
yeah, like ride-sharing games. But I thought I like the look of this one. You play the last or one of the last like human like basically cab or Uber drivers left in a future city.
So this actually could be happening like 2 years from now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. The shift in fashion would be pretty impressive in that amount of time. But yeah, you're 20 minutes in the future, as they say, and basically it starts as sort of like a cab driving sim, but it very quickly becomes like through overhearing and meeting your passengers, it becomes sort of like a noirish like mystery thing, and in a world where, and maybe some of it is just because I'm all up on the cyberpunk because of cyberpunk right now, but like in a world where so many of those indie games like kind of all look similar,
Yeah.
this one really jumped out at me. This one and There was another one. There was a black and white noir one that I looked at hard
missed
too,
that
which was
somehow.
Night City or Night something like that. And I can't. It was on Sifted, but like I saw the trailer, but there was no really any other information about it. That looked cool. But this one, it's very visually appealing to me, and I'm intrigued by sort of the premise. And at this point, like indie games, like I feel like you are hitting a point where indie games they can feel samey.
Yes, absolutely.
And so
Like, how many more roguelites do we need
Right.
at this point?
It's like how many? It's like I've seen a lot of voxels
Yes.
in my time.
Voxels
boys.
and roguelites. That's
Yeah.
pretty much the indie scene right now.
So if you can give me something that makes me go, oh, I don't know how that's going to turn out.
Yeah.
Like you get my attention, and I think Neocab kind of held my imagination the best of anything they showed this year.
Okay, my pick is Generation Zero. So notice how Microsoft snatched up the Hellblade developer after it created the AAA indie. That's exactly what Avalanche is doing with Generation Zero. It's a cooperative shooter where you play with 3 other players and you go out into the wilderness and hunt gigantic robots. I did not get to play this myself. I did watch somebody else play it at the show, so I have not had hands-on experience with it. But this game you would never guess is an indie game. It is being self-published, and I suspect that Avalanche has done this. It's the Just Cause team. And I suspect that
Avalanche is kind of blowing up right now.
It kind of is. And I suspect that Avalanche has done this. It's going to self-publish this game because it also wants to get purchased.
Buy me.
I think
Yeah.
it saw what happened with Ninja Theory, and it's like, you know what? Ninja Theory bit the bullet and self-published a game and probably got all its money back because it was a great game. And if we do this, and our game is great, and it does well, maybe we get snatched up by some publisher and we all cash in.
Did no one do that already?
Do what?
I felt like Avalanche was going to get bought by somebody.
Not that I'm aware of. That would throw my theory into a tizzy.
I get confused because there's another Avalanche
There are 2.
in Salt Lake that got shut down, I guess.
Yeah, the one in Salt Lake did like the Toys to Life stuff.
Yeah, they did Disney,
back in the
Disney
day-
Infinity and
Back in the day, it did like snowboarding games.
Yeah.
I actually interviewed at that place way back in the day and went to Salt Lake. And once I saw Salt Lake, I was like, there's no way in hell I'm moving here. No offense to anyone in Salt Lake. It's just not some place that I wanted to live. This is the Avalanche that does Just Cause. And I suspect that this is all a play by Avalanche to try to get snatched up, get paid out. And
yeah,
then
they got bought by Nordisk Film this year.
Nordis Film?
Nordisk, a Danish entertainment company.
Really? Well, I guess that does throw my theory all to crap. I had no idea about that. Wow, I thought that they were still an own private company. So there you go. But this is a AAA indie. That makes me wonder why it would do this.
I don't know, to have a property that's theirs, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Ninja Theory did it without knowing that they were going to get snatched up eventually.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, maybe they're just trying to build their own publishing arm or something
Yeah,
like that.
I mean, or they make open world explosive games all the time. Maybe they want to make one that they weren't taking orders on.
Possible.
You know?
But the game plays really well, looks really good. It's hard to believe that it's an indie game if you look at it. It looks like something that you would buy for
Oh, the
$60.
chat says Nordisk is THQ Nordic.
Oh, THQ Nordic owns Avalanche?
Nordic Games bought THQ and became THQ Nordic, and I guess they just bought them this year.
But how are they letting Square Enix publish games then?
Probably because those contracts are already in place.
Uh,
You have to finish your contracts.
that's interesting. That's a twist.
We'll see where Avalanche goes after this.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm surprised that THQ Nordic had the cash to buy that studio. That's surprising to me.
THQ Nordic has a lot of money. Like, I don't know where it came from, but they bought a ton of stuff and they're chugging along.
They have no hits.
Not yet.
Not yet. Well, they've been around for a few years now.
I mean,
They've been around ever since Sifted
They brought an
launched.
expansion to Titan Quest out
Yeah.
of nowhere. I mean, I'm not arguing with them. I'm happy with some of the stuff they've done. I just
Yeah.
don't know where they're getting the money for it.
Yep. But this does. I mean, you look at that game; it doesn't look like an indie game.
No, not at all.
It's not like a 2D side-scrolling whatever with
Neither
pixels
is
and
Hellblade.
voxels and exactly.
I mean, Hellblade's a good comparison there.
Yeah, so Hellblade is started changing what indie games could be, and I think this is kind of the next step towards that. So that's my favorite indie game of E3 2018. And you have an honorable mention for this category.
I do. Honorable mention because really it was just a trailer. They just announced it. Nobody went into any detail on it, but it's a game called Beyond Blue by the same developers that made Never Alone, the Inuit game with the girl and the little wolf cub.
Yep, which had probably got more critical acclaim than commercial acclaim.
Yeah, no doubt. But this is an underwater exploration game, and I love those.
It's a survival game too.
Yep, and very pretty. Some really scary, dark underwater stuff, as well as some beautiful like whales and sharks and this kind of thing. It takes place in kind of the near future, and you're supposed to be exploring to try to figure out something. They're vague about it, but as a fan of Eternal Blue and Subnautica and all that kind of stuff, like this is instantly on my radar, and I felt like it's been a little ignored because it was announced a few days into E3. It wasn't really highlighted in anything, so I wanted to mention it just so people knew it existed.
Yeah, you're the leader of a research team, and then things go wrong, and then you have to kind of pull everything together and help you and your team survive at the bottom of the ocean.
But the point is you're going to scan whales.
Yep.
And that is what I'm here for.
Awesome. All right, let's move on to best role-playing game or best RPG in its truncated form. This is another category where we both agree, and I'm guessing probably everyone out there knows already what we're going to say.
Yeah.
And that is Cyberpunk 2077. Yeah, it is. And here now I'll talk about quests, or at least one of the quests that they showed us, and how different they can play out and how different they can be. So you start out, you're kind of a mercenary, but you're doing all these small gigs. And you're not making any money, and you're dealing with like street thugs. You get a call from, I guess, a mob boss would be the best way to describe him. And he's talking about this big job that he needs pulled off. And he's like, I need this droid from this group that nobody wants anything to do with because they're all insane and they've all been over-augmented and they're really dangerous. But he tells you need to go talk to, essentially, the authorities because they can get you into their location and can get you the funds that you need in order to buy this robot, this droid. So you go and you meet with the authorities, and they give you this chip card that's supposed to have 50,000 credits on it. Like the currency in the game is called eddies, which they say is short for euros, but I didn't quite understand that. But anyway, she gives you a card that has 50,000 eddies on it. And so you go, and part of the demo is you making the trek over to meet these guys, and that's where you kind of get to see the Grand Theft Auto type stuff as far as driving the cars and driving through the city and the open world and all that. And then you get there, and you infiltrate this group's hideout. And you go through a bunch of strife I'm not going to get into. Once you finally get in there, you meet with a guy, and you tell him you're looking for a droid. They're insane. They're all like over-augmented. Everyone has these little slots behind their ear where you put what looks like a thumb drive into it. And the thumb drive gives you powers and abilities and all this kind of stuff, and everybody has it. And so you go in there, and also inhalants are a big part of the game. For whatever reason, you have these little like
a lot of these elements are taken from the old pen and paper game.
That's what I figured.
They're simulating kind of that. I think you can kind of pick some archetypes for your character, and three of them are from the original classes from the original Cyberpunk game. There's a lot of nods. There's some speculation they might add in DLC more classes later, which would fit. But yeah, some of it. I'm interested to see kind of in the end how they update a lot of how because a lot of the stuff in the old 80s Cyberpunk pen and paper RPG is sort of behind our tech now. So like
crazy.
We'll see how they kind of modernize that a little bit. But yeah, some like the inhalants and stuff are just
they're almost like an asthma inhaler, and you use those, and that will like affect your vision and all kinds of
Mm-hmm.
other stuff. And like he gives you one of those, and you're kind of getting comfortable like hanging out with this guy, and then everybody else kind of comes in, and like the leader comes in, and he's like, what are these people doing here? And you explain you're trying to buy a droid and you have 50,000 credits or whatever. After some persuasion, you finally convince him to accept the payment for the droid, and you give him the card that the authorities gave you. He takes the card to check how much money is in it, and you've been set up. The authorities have put essentially a virus on the card so that when this group plugs it into their machine, it hacks all their shit.
Yeah, it kills one of them.
And then everything just goes haywire. And it just turns into this crazy battle. So after they finish the demo, they explain that there are like 4 or 5 different ways you can approach it. Like you could use your own money. You can decline the card from the authorities if you want, and you can just use your own money that you've already earned in the game and go buy it. You can take the card from them. You can go there and you can tell the guy, hey, this card is hacked. When you put it in, it's going to hack your stuff, and then you will join up with them, and you two go after the authorities then. There's all these different scenarios of how you can handle everything. And that, to me, since we're talking about best RPG, I thought that was probably the best example to bring up of how it is an RPG.
Yeah, that and the, I mean, obviously the various like there's the scene in the where you go to the upgrade doctor.
Yeah.
He takes your eye out.
Yep.
and like
And gives you like a crazy zoom vision.
Yeah, but like when he take like you see. Like when he takes the eye out, like the perspective of the game goes with the eye.
Yeah,
and it's like,
it shows you what would happen if somebody took your eyeball out.
A little out of body action.
The whole game it was an hour of stuff like that, Matt, where it was just one thing after another where you're just like, what? No freaking way.
I mean, that's how CD Projekt Red rolls. The Witcher 3 demos were like that. They're very long. I think like 2 years before Witcher 3 came out, I think the demo was like an hour long, 40 to 60 minutes long, and they went through a whole hunting quest and did all that. Yeah, I mean, there's no question they are on the cutting edge of what it means to present RPG content in a way that no one else is doing it.
Yeah, no other RPG at E3 was even close. This game won this category running away.
Like what would be
down.
other? I mean, there's not even my head.
There's Destiny 2. I mean, there's some JRPGs that were there.
Does Kingdom Hearts count?
I mean, Shadow of the Tomb Raider is an action RPG.
Yeah, it's an action RPG.
But
what isn't
pales
an
in
action
comparison.
RPG at this point?
Almost it's becoming just the genre of video games. I mean, it really is. Kingdom Hearts, in some ways, is an action RPG.
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely an action RPG.
So, yeah, there was some competition, but not really. Let's move on to best VR game. Boy, VR is looking a little
light on the
rough.
ground this year.
Oh,
I mean,
boy.
stuff's still coming.
Yeah.
But like when it comes down like pick the best thing, you're like you're tempted to just bunt and say Beat Saber, you know?
Yeah.
Which is already out.
There just wasn't much VR there. It's like the last few E3s, pretty much every publisher would have a little section outside of their booths where they'd have like a roped off area where people could try whatever they were working on for VR. And they had it out there, so it would get people to come into the booth. They'd walk up and see somebody doing the VR thing and be like, oh, that's cool, and then stumble into the booth. That's all gone. Right. There's none of that at E3 anymore. There was hardly any VR at E3, period. Like if you walked into Bethesda's
certainly not on the
booth,
floor.
Yeah, if you walked to the Bethesda's booth, Bethesda supported VR at E3 extensively. And it had the same setup it has always had. Those weird, like almost sliding glass door, like columns or whatever. Which were
VR rooms,
right?
Previously.
And they are still.
Yeah.
But there's nobody in there. Like just no one cares.
But if you want to go into the Fallout rooms, that's a line.
Yeah. But there's nothing in there.
And the Sony VR section, because on the kind of the back of their booth almost, like I didn't even see it the first time I walked through.
Ghost town, total ghost town. There were probably it's the same setup that Sony has had for the last 2 years, where they have like little rooms. There's like 20 of them. Of those 20 rooms, probably 3 of them had people actually in them, like playing VR games. And
there was a time when it was like a 5-hour wait.
Oh yeah,
to get
all
to
full with lines for each one of the rooms. And now there's
the wind
just
has definitely
nobody.
shifted. And I thought it was interesting. So I guess I should say my pick before I get into this because it's related. So my pick is Stormland, which is Insomniac's new game.
Oculus exclusive.
Oculus exclusive. Now they did a trailer and now they dropped a trailer for it, but if you wanted to see more in-depth gameplay at the E3 Coliseum, Ted Price, head of Insomniac, did a thing with Jason Rubin, who's the head of content, I think, at Oculus.
He's basically he's the head of getting content,
getting stuff on the Oculus, basically. And they talked a lot about because Insomniac's been supporting Oculus since the beginning. And because they're bros, and also because Insomniac, Ted talked a lot about how they appreciate. Insomniac likes the challenge of having, like back when they were developing Ratchet, they were trying to figure out how to do a 3D platformer with, they had nothing to work from basically except Mario 64, right? And trying to figure out how to do that in different ways. And Ruben was at Naughty Dog at the time doing Jak and Daxter, so they were kind of on that same frontier together.
Well, Mark
And-
Cerny also was kind of the linchpin between those studios.
Yeah.
He was the tech guy, and he would live in LA, and he would just go back and forth between the studios, basically saying, hey, we just discovered this yesterday at Insomniac of how we can do this on PlayStation 2. Then he'd go over to Naughty Dog and say, hey, we just discovered how to this new coding thing that we're doing over there. And it made all boats rise, essentially.
And so they talked about kind of the challenge of going from developing, kind of being the masters of, they didn't say it like that, but basically it's like, we're the masters of console development of what we do, and now we have to kind of learn everything over again doing VR, and that's exciting. I get that. And Ruben talked about, I thought this was interesting, that Ruben talked about how Stormland is interesting because it was pitched to him by Insomniac when they first came to them with Oculus. And Ruben said to them, that's awesome. There's no way you can do that first. Like it's that's going to take you a long time to make, and we need stuff now. So this is sort of the culmination of a 3-year development cycle. And Ruben was talking about how it's cool that now we're starting to see stuff that has been as opposed to the kind of the shorter experiences that were there for launch that took a year, and then the second wave of like stuff that took more like 2 years. Now you're seeing the stuff people have been working on for 3 years. Because a lot of people like kind of tiered projects, I guess.
Yeah.
And
Makes sense.
this is a full open world adventure game where you play as this android that
You play as Wally.
Yeah, Wally with legs, and his job, he's a gardener in this world where he's supposed to take care of the plants and stuff. But like you end up having to venture into these Stormlands where.
Robots and storms don't go so well together.
No, but apparently he has to do it, and there's a lot of climbing, and there's a lot of gliding. You can glide like slipstream through clouds and stuff. So you fly around and climb up stuff with the motion controllers, and there's some shooting. It's basically it's an open world kind of exploration adventure shooter game, and
it's the best looking VR game I've ever seen.
Absolutely, and
not
it's
even close.
And it's the kind of game I would play if it wasn't VR.
Absolutely.
So I'm kind of more interested in that regard. The thing that I thought of when I was watching that little presentation was when he was talking about how it's a 3-year game. So has anyone started a 3-year game this year?
What did he say?
I mean, I didn't ask him.
Oh,
I was watching it.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe somebody.
But I thought when I was thinking because of how like
I'm guessing no.
I'm thinking like I'm wondering if Insomniac has another 3-year game in the cycle here, and I'm wondering if the answer is maybe not.
I mean, Insomniac's last 2 games for Oculus didn't do squat.
So you can see here, there's the gliding, and it doesn't look too exciting here, but in VR it's pretty great. I'm sure.
It'd make me barf.
You have you have stuff like your inventory. So all your inventory stuff is on your belt, so you have to like kind of reach down and grab it. There's a really cool thing at the end of one of the gameplay trailers where somebody throws a grenade at you and you catch it and sling it back at them. And I'm like, that's awesome.
For VR, absolutely.
For VR, that's great. That's a cool, because that's an actual test of your hand and reflexes.
Yeah.
You can play co-op with someone. They were talking about how with the motion stuff, it's interesting because you can, if you're playing with someone if you're playing like a friend of yours, you can tell who it is because of how they move.
Wow.
And how he was like, I know Jason, I know he walks a certain way, and I know he turns his head a certain way, and I see that in his Android when we're playing together. I can tell who it is. And I'm like, that's a cool thing. And there's a whole thing about like they're going to keep updating it, and there'll be new challenges. Like it seems like kind of like almost like a living MMO kind of post game like Destiny, where it's like go back to the places you've been, but there's new challenges and new things to do, and you get better loot or whatever. I mean, it's not going to set the world on fire, probably.
Nothing does.
But in terms of something that would actually make me drag the headset out and put it on again, like this felt like something that could do that. Okay.
My pick is Astrobot Rescue Mission. I was very thankful that nobody was in the PlayStation VR area in Sony's booth. I was able to walk right up and play this game. For those of you who don't know, this is the full game based upon Playroom VR, which is a free demo you can still download if you have PlayStation
one demo
VR.
in it. If there was one thing they were going to make into a full game out of that,
this is it. And they did. And it's even better than that mini game was on at the launch of PlayStation VR.
That mini game is still one of the best things I've ever played in VR.
When people come over to check out my PlayStation VR, it is what I put in my drive or what I boot up. It's actually a digital game. And people freak out because I think one thing is nobody gets sick playing it because essentially the camera is still
sort of floating there.
You're just kind of planted in the middle of the world, and then everything is displayed in relation to where you are. And it literally feels like you are in this world. And the game before was very simple. The levels were really small. You didn't have to move around too much. This one, the worlds are just like any regular 3D platformer, but you're still getting that crazy immersion of VR from it. And, you know, I'm a big 3D platformer guy. It's a no-brainer for me to pick as best VR game. I have a feeling this will end up being probably the best-selling VR game for PlayStation VR, save for maybe Resident Evil, 7, which, it's not just a VR game. This, I don't know if you could even play this if it's not in VR. But I had a ton of fun playing it. The demo was great. The immersion was great. It is advanced over the Playroom VR demo. You can use the Move controllers. Back then, it's like they didn't even incorporate the Move controllers into PlayStation VR yet. So it is advanced a little bit over that demo, far more robust. They said it's at least like 12 hours long, so it's a big, beefy game. I was really impressed with it. So, and then I actually have an honorable mention for this one. And my honorable mention for best VR game is Creed Rise to Glory. If you guys have watched Game Face for any amount of time, or Invisible Walls, or followed me at all, you know that I'm a huge Punch-Out guy. And this is basically Punch-Out for VR. Matt had mentioned before we recorded today that he's not a fan of the art style, and I would agree with that. I think they could do a better job of making the characters a little more distinctive. But what really hooked me on this game is the gameplay. What really impressed me about the gameplay was that they were using the Move controllers on PlayStation VR to demo this, and you still had that great one-to-one control with the Move controllers and your punches. The other part of it, too, is that it is an insane workout. You have to keep your hands up at all times. And people may not realize, people may say, oh, you got to keep your hands up. Keeping your hands up is hard. You get tired really quickly. And the action, I was sweating when I was done with this. I actually walked by, and it kind of caught out of the corner of my eye. I was like, oh my gosh, one, it's a VR game. Two, it was a VR game that had a line like going all the way outside of the booth. And I was like, okay, what's up with this thing?
This seemed to be one of the only VR games at the show that made any kind of waves.
Yep. And I kind of sauntered up, and one of the developers noticed I had a media badge, and he just grabbed me and kicked I felt bad. He kicked like somebody out and let me start playing it. And I was really, really impressed with it. The feeling of the punches coming at you, you do not want to get hit by the punches. Like, you seriously are scared. You're like, oh my gosh, it's going to break my nose. So the immersion is great. The one-to-one controls, even with PlayStation VR, which is not one of its strengths, was great. So I can't even imagine what this is going to be like on Vive or Oculus, where you have like the touch controllers or whatever, where it's just deadly accurate. And so, yeah, I'm a big fan of Punch-Out. This is kind of like Punch-Out VR to me. I had a ton of fun with it. Got a workout. I'm actually kind of looking for VR games that I can get a workout out of. This is definitely one of them. So, yeah, I just wanted to mention that for those of you who still have PlayStation VR. You're like, man, I'm not doing anything with this. It's a great option if you're looking to get a workout or if you're just really into sports or boxing games. So,
and there aren't too many boxing games anymore.
There aren't, especially for VR. So, yeah, I highly recommend it. You check it out. Let's see. Next is Best Action Adventure, the industry's dying genre. These are the games that are left that have not moved over to action RPGs yet.
Yeah, and I mean, even my pick might be edge.
It is getting edgy, yeah. So what is your pick?
So my pick is Marvel Spider-Man.
Yep. One of the last true action adventure games left.
And I mean, we'll still see. I mean, there's probably some upgrading and some skill learning and some,
slippery slope.
But nobody's popping XP out of their heads when you punch them yet, so I think we're safe. I mean, I've talked about this game kind of ad nauseum for a year. It's Spider-Man. I like Spider-Man. I love comic books and superhero open world stuff. It looks great. You already said a lot of the main positives about it in your up-down. It looks even better this year. I'm impressed by how many damn villains are in the thing. Like, and they say there's still more to come. Like, they haven't shown everything.
A lot of people thought like the whole game was spoiled.
Oh, no. Here's a lot of people were complaining that like the raft breakout, they thought that was like, why did you show us the end of the game? It's like, I promise you, that is the tutorial. That is the beginning of the game. Like I promise you, because that's taken
People are trigger happy.
it's taken directly from Michael Bendis's Brian Michael Bendis's New Avengers comic. It's the first issue. It's the very first thing that happens. Electro is paid to break out Sauron, actually, of all characters, out of the raft, and he frees everybody to do it, so the chaos lets them escape. In that, he's actually paid to do it by Elektra, who's disguised as a Skrull. I'm pretty sure that's not what's happening here, because Elektra would be a totally different license. I feel like you probably go through a little tutorial, and then this happens, and you get up to the part where he's like, "Wait, you?" And then it cuts like 2 weeks earlier.
Yeah.
And you like have to play through the game. You know, it's Uncharted 2 style. You have to
Work
play
it
through the
back to
game to
that
get
point.
back to that point.
Yeah.
And then you find it, and or it could be a little earlier where it's like everybody breaks out, and the rest of the game is hunting down all these major villains and putting them away again.
Yep.
But I'm pretty sure they did not just ruin the end of the game.
Which actually
for
reminds me a
everybody.
lot of Arkham Asylum.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Or man, now I can't remember. I mean, but that was the plot of the original New Avengers story. Is like the breakout was the setup, and figuring out what happened, who did it, and how to get everybody back in jail was sort of
Was the experience.
the plot of the main story.
Yeah.
So I think that's what's happening here. But yeah, it wasn't an up or down for me because I was super excited, and I'm still super excited, and it's right around the corner. It looks great, and we got to see open world stuff really kind of played by a non-experienced demo. You know, we'd seen it played by Insomniac people.
Yeah.
We hadn't seen it. You know, I watched plenty of just random people playing it on the floor, and it makes you look good.
It does,
But
yeah.
you can tell people are doing whatever they want. They're playing it freely.
Yeah.
It's not a scripted web slinging
Nope.
thing. It's all there. There's some skill-driven stuff to it. I mean, you're not gonna struggle to get through it, I think, but you can definitely get better at it.
Oh, absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
swing around and make yourself look cool and feel more like Spider-Man the more you adjust to the system. So,
Control's really intuitive too.
Yeah.
It's just the R2 trigger is pretty much all you use to swing around.
so yeah, it was mostly just a really good reinforcement of my already positive
Existing position.
positive position on the game.
Yep. And I picked the only other action adventure game at E3, and that's the Resident Evil 2 remake. I played a 20-minute. Well, I didn't play. I watched a 20-minute demo being played. It starts basically right from the beginning, where you come into the mansion. Mm-hmm. And so you get to see several of the iconic scenes from the beginning of Resident Evil 2. But also, that 20 minutes gives you a great cross-section of everything. You get plenty of gunplay. There's at least like 10 or 15 zombies that you get to fight. There's puzzle solving. There's clues. There's herbs. There's typewriters. I mean, they still have typewriters for
Man.
saving in the game.
Who's going to even know what those are?
I know. wait until some of these noobs have to find like a ribbon so they can save.
Ink ribbons.
Talk about YouTube React videos when these people
Yeah.
realize that they have to find something to save their game.
That's going to be like one of like the trivia points and like the did you know game. It's like, did you know that people actually typed on these things in the past before? It's like that'll be like a trivia point where like, can you believe that people used to listen to records?
Yeah. The other thing I would say too is that lighting is probably the biggest change to this remake, other than the polygonal graphics that look freaking amazing. Things go black. They go black. I mean, literally, you can't see anything. Like, your screen is just completely blank. And you just start stumbling around at times, just trying to find one little sliver of light that you can walk towards. And the game works
Such
off
as?
of it. Well, right. Eventually, you do get a flashlight, though. But at first, it's literally like you're blind, and you're trying to find one little patch of light to walk towards, but the game sets you up. So it's like you walk towards that little spot of light, and next thing you know, a zombie attacks or whatever, and you have to deal with that. So if any of you have never played Resident Evil 2, I envy you. I really wish that I could play this all over again for the first time, but it looks like the changes are so drastic.
I feel this would be pretty close to it.
Yeah.
I mean, also I haven't played that game in probably 18 years.
I know,
so-
it's crazy to think about. So I'm really, really excited for this game. For me, it was the easy pick for action adventure. I am, again, RE4 is my favorite Resident Evil. This plays like RE4. None of that Resident Evil 5 or Resident Evil 6 business coming up in this. I was worried.
You're
I was
probably
like,
not going to be punching boulders into shards in this one.
definitely not. I think it was a smart decision by Capcom, and I'm very happy with it.
This is exactly, I think, how they should have gone about it.
Yep.
I'm very happy with what we see.
Yep. So there you go. There's our picks for best action adventure. We may not even have this category next year, if there is a next year. Next up is best strategy game.
This one was a little light on the ground.
Yes.
In some ways.
There were 3 games essentially to choose
Yeah.
from.
And so the one I picked was mainly because I went back to kind of look at everything again to make sure to kind of say, well, what is it? And I hovered around the Gears thing, but there's just not enough. I don't know enough about that yet.
Yeah.
So I went with Fire Emblem Three Houses. And the main reason for this is because in the trailer...
It's a Fire Emblem game?
It's because of a Fire Emblem game. It helps as a Fire Emblem game, but there's 2 main things. First, when you watch the trailer, you can see that like the options are very different.
Yeah.
So I'm interested. There's the 2 things that stood out. There's like magic and attack are different options, and usually it's just like you just attack with whatever weapon, and that's the kind of attack you get.
Yeah.
So that's a change. And the other thing is there's a formation button, and what that is for is that if you see in the trailer that when it goes to time to attack, there's like generic soldiers around your hero characters, whereas usually in Fire Emblem it's just the hero's solo kind of battling things out. And you see them kind of ordering their soldiers forward in formation and stuff, like to like weaken the other side, and then they go in, the generals kind of go in and fight.
Right.
And that is straight out of Dragon Force, which
Yeah.
is one of my favorite Saturn games, one of my favorite games of all time, period. And if Fire Emblem, which is already a series I really like, and if it also shows they're bringing in kind of the castle building and sort of the on foot exploration stuff from Fates, and I think was that Fates? Or was
No,
it
there's
Shadows
the
of
skirmishes in Ni no Kuni 2 are kind of like this too.
Yeah,
Where
yeah,
you
a
have your
bit.
little armies and you set the formation. You have to be strategic about which guys you put in the front of your formation
Yeah.
and which guys are in the back.
But this is like the old Dragon Force. If you like look up videos of it, where like you've got your main guy and they guys go charge, and they got
Yeah.
all these guys. And it's like a paper rock scissors thing where like dragons beat everybody actually. Archers beat soldiers, cavalry beats archers. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then at the end, like the 2 generals sort of have a like turn-based showdown. And if they're going to combine that stuff with like what's already good about Fire Emblem, I am in right now. So
That's
like,
early next year, is
early,
that right?
yes, it's spring 2019, I think.
Yeah. I'm
So-
surprised that it's not coming out.
I think a lot of people expected it this year. It would have been a nice addition to kind of round out the 2018 schedule, but like,
I think Nintendo needs more than rounding out.
yeah, I mean, that's not what we're talking about
No.
right now. But no, I as a Fire Emblem fan already, I'm glad a full-fledged console Fire Emblem is coming, and the fact that they seem to be using elements from one of my favorite strategy games of all time, like really elevated this. Like, and I didn't really notice that until after the press conference, the direct, and I'd gone back and looked at it again. I was like, okay. So yeah, my opinion through the roof on that one.
Not a very pretty game.
No, not pretty at all. But Fire
I think
Emblem.
I might be
Look,
being a little nice since
I feel like Fire Emblem lost something in the transition to polygonal graphics that it's never
Yeah.
getting back.
Yeah.
So I'm
just
not,
technically that game is pretty ugly.
yeah.
Some of those ground textures, man, look like
I don't
Dreamcast
disagree,
quality.
but I also played Dragon Force over again
Yeah,
recently, and it's
those
like,
games really aren't
they
about the
don't need to look
visuals, though.
that great,
Does it really
yeah.
matter?
no.
If there's a genre where graphics matter the least, that's one of them.
Yeah, I mean, if you want, it's a nice bonus.
Yeah.
But like, and yeah, I'm a little like the visual look is a little subpar for the. I mean, it's like when I feel the same way kind of about Pokemon. It's like when you took like Mario from the last system to this system, it looks like Odyssey. When you took Zelda from the last system to this system, it looks like Breath of the Wild. When you take Pokemon and Fire Emblem, they just sort of look like remasters.
It looks like they could be games that were like for the original Wii, and they're just like, hey, we got these kicking around.
Yeah.
Like,
Hey, we got better filters now, right?
Yeah.
Just put some anisotropic on it and call it a day. No, I was definitely of the strategy games, and it was slim pickings this year. Of the strategy games that we saw at E3, that's the one that I really want to play the most because of that Dragon Force connection. And maybe that's just me imagining things and hoping it's going to be more robust than it really is. But my hope's going to spring eternal because they didn't really talk about it much.
they didn't. They showed the trailer, and that's exactly why I did not pick it. It's
Right.
because I didn't have enough experience with actually playing it to know if the gameplay is okay. And just looking at it, it just really turned me off.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went with another game, and I went with Mutant Year Zero Road to Eden. If you guys remember, well, Sam can actually show it right now. It was one of our trailers of the week for 1 week. It's like an anamorphic creature XCOM.
Oh, right, this thing. Yeah, I remember this.
Have you seen it? played yet? Did you get to play it at the show?
I didn't even see it. I didn't see it was there.
It's pretty flipping awesome, dude. Like literally, you play as like these animals, but it's like XCOM. But a big part of the gameplay is not just like, oh, encounter, now hunker down behind something and take cover. It's a lot of the way the strategy works is based upon your movements before combat even happens. And how you deploy your barnyard of characters out into the field, because each character, each animal has different attributes that change how effective they are on the battlefield. And the game looks great. Like the characters have like fur shading, and the levels are really moody. There's lots of mist and fog. This game compared to Fire Emblem, and again, it was slim pickings. I actually didn't get to check out Gears Tactics, or I would have maybe given that the nod. But I did play this, and I did look at the trailer footage for Fire Emblem, and Fire Emblem wasn't tripping my trigger at all, even though I am a fan of that franchise. And having a chance to actually play this at the show, in addition to having seen this trailer before, to me it was probably the most furthest along game in the strategy genre at the show.
Because Gears seemed real early.
I didn't even get to see it.
I didn't see it.
Oh,
I don't.
It may not even have been
I don't think it was. I think it was
okay.
just that trailer.
Because you were saying, like, it sounded like you said you had saw it somewhere. And
No, I
did
was.
not see it.
I just meant like when I was trying to come up with something. I was
got you,
thinking
got you.
about Gears, but like it wasn't.
Well, in that case, this was also the only playable strategy game in the.
Not a lot.
So it wins by default.
I'm sure
no,
there
was
was some
one
indie
other one.
stuff we didn't.
Yeah, there's
see.
Total War 3 Kingdoms was
And
there.
there's Killer Queen Black.
Yeah. But Total War 3 Kingdoms is like,
Anno 1880.
at this point, like Creative Assembly is just like putting more lipstick on the same face.
You got a formula, stick with it.
I mean,
guess.
look, they do fine with it, but it's hard for me to award a Best of E3 award or even a Game of the Year when you're just like reskinning something
we
every
didn't even,
like
we didn't
9
even
months.
have a Vermintide expansion this time.
No, and this to me was really unique, really different. I've never seen a strategy game like that before.
that's the action game, right?
What?
Vermintide. That's like the Left 4
Yeah,
Dead
yeah,
game.
that's like
I mean, like there was the strategy, the grand Total War style strategy game, Warhammer 40,000 was a big deal in the Sega booth last year. There's nothing this year.
no, yeah, Total War Warhammer is what they're called.
Right.
But they just put out Total War Warhammer 2 like 3 months ago or something like that. So yeah, they didn't have anything to show. But Total War 3 Kingdoms was there.
Yeah.
And I did like stop by and watch
That's
a
the
stage
Romance of the
show
Three
of it, and I was
Kingdoms,
just like, yeah, this is like the same game you guys have been making. This is something different, and that's why I chose it. And it also plays well and was very interesting. So let's move on to Best Fighting Game. I can guarantee there's one game you know that isn't going to win this category.
Yeah.
But this was also a genre that
Might come in third.
Yeah,
though.
exactly. This is another genre that was really underrepresented this year at E3. There were not a lot of fighting games, and most of them
Yeah.
were coming from Bandai Namco.
And most of the fighting games that were really on display were old games.
Yep.
You know, Street Fighter V was there. They did a tournament as they always
Arcade
do.
Edition was there, yeah.
But the cross tag battle, the cross tag game I can't ever remember from Arc Systems was there with all the
Yeah.
different Blaze Blue and everybody.
Yeah.
That's already out. Like it was
SNK Heroines
Yeah.
was there, I think, but they all just kind of blend together.
It wasn't a big fight. Fighter Z for or Fighters for
Yeah.
Switch.
And what was the anime one that was just announced?
Jump
Force.
Force.
Yeah.
Which look like the visuals on that look okay, but like
You think so?
for what it is,
It just looked like big empty. It's an arena fighter,
Yeah,
so
it's
you
a
have these
big
big
arena fight.
open.
You gotta
but it
have
just
big
looks
buildings
so
and-
empty.
Well, that's the whole. I mean, that's what those games are. It's
I
like
guess.
it's like Gundam Versus.
I've discovered I'm not a big arena battler fan. They're not
No.
my forte. I mean, I think Smash kind of falls into that category as well.
Yeah, but you're not in a big open zone.
Yeah.
It's not a Power Stone
Yeah,
style.
at least you're kind of actually limited with Smash Brothers, which, by the way, is the winner from both of us.
Yeah,
If
I mean,
you
I
haven't
don't know
figured it out
what
yet.
else do you pick?
What else would you pick? Like, even in a strong year for fighting games, it would probably win. I mean, Ultimate Smash, where do you go from there? How do you ever release another game again? Because it's not going to be the ultimate version of the game.
Probably like Rebirth. Super
Yeah,
Smash
you're
Brothers
right.
Rebirth.
Or
like,
birth, like as they do in
Yeah.
Japan. I'm not a big Smash guy. But if you're a Smash fan, it looks pretty awesome.
I like Smash. I mean, I'd prefer if they did more of a campaign-y thing because I thought that was fun.
They haven't really added anything to it.
No, I mean,
other than just, hey, here's all the characters and stages we've ever had.
I mean, you could have probably just called this like Super Smash Brothers. Oh my God, we made it.
Or
kind of
Super
because
Smash
it feels,
Brothers DX, like they've done with all the other.
Because it feels like they took every asset they had from the previous games and just remastered it into this because they desperately needed something out this year.
Nintendo, for the record, is saying that this game was absolutely built from the ground up for a Switch, and this isn't just a port of the Wii U game. I don't believe it, but I just wanted to get it on the show that is what Nintendo is saying, that it is a brand new game, that it started building from scratch. Again, I don't believe it, but that's the official line.
Yeah, I mean, you can just import your assets or whatever in there. I don't know what they're doing there, but like bringing back everybody, they've added, 3 characters? Inkling, Ridley, and Daisy, who's an Echo character.
Right, which is their word for clone.
I mean, okay, those 3 are, big requests. I mean, people wanting Ridley in the game since Melee. And I love this, like, oh, Ridley's too big. We can't put Ridley in. It's too big. And like, it's like, well, how'd you get rid of him? Well, we shrank him.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, wow. Good. Only took you 15 years to think of that, huh? Good work.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's probably cool if you just want more Smash and they're focusing on kind of the competitive thing where every level has like a boring version that you can play tournament style on. But for me, who's just sort of into it for the novelty of seeing the crossover, it's like, oh, everybody I've already seen before? Okay. But Smash Brothers, it'll play well. It'll be fun. I did want Ridley. I mean, I'm looking forward to that. I mean, and I'll take any kind of Metroid you will give me at this point, frankly. And I'm sure there will be new characters.
There are tons of tweaks to the game, too.
Oh, yeah, they're
but there are
changing
things
everybody.
that only the hardest of the hardcore Smash fans will
you
ever
could tell
notice.
in that, like, in the Direct, they in the 25 minutes they spent on it, they went through a little upgrade thing or a little update thing for every single character.
Yeah.
And I love, like, some of it was just like, we've changed this, and this can, this move works differently, and people wanted this to be this, so it works like this. I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. And like Olimar, they're like, when he gets hit, his helmet cracks.
Yeah.
But then it fixes itself. It's like, what? Like, okay.
Wasn't there a certain point where, no, maybe it was in the Treehouse demo where Sakurai, is that the guy that makes it?
Yeah.
He said something like, you shouldn't expect a lot of changes.
He said, please don't expect too many new characters.
Yeah, or too many new something or other.
yeah.
I was just like, that you don't say that. Like,
And I mean, Sony did that too.
Oh, that's right, it did.
Sean Layden did that too.
that was one of his flippant comments.
Yeah, don't expect too many surprises.
Yeah, smart move.
I mean, it's a cool. I feel like it's a good ground they've laid here for this game. If the last one's any indication, there will be DLC and new characters through that way, and you'll be paying $10 for your pack or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that's not the last of what we're gonna get in terms of new.
But are we going to
content.
get like a single player mode? Probably not.
Doesn't seem like it.
I mean, to me, if you're building a game from the ground up for a new platform, shouldn't you probably add something like that to the game?
Maybe. I mean, but like if it's a kind of a party game style thing, if Nintendo really is willing to sort of.
But that's honestly why I don't play Smash anymore.
But if Nintendo's willing to support the competitive community, that's where their audience for this title is.
I don't have anyone to play with at home. My wife is not going to play Smash Brothers with me, no matter how much I beg. And when I go online, I just get annihilated because these people have been playing Smash for like 20 years or whatever. So I end up, like, every time I get Smash, I end up playing it for like a day, and I'm like, I'm done. There's no single player, really anything in the game anymore. And like, to me, I think that could have been something to differentiate it a little bit from the Wii U game.
Well, we've seen the videos in the Direct. I mean, you're supposed to go out to the park with your
Right.
Switch
Right.
and find the other hip young adults and play at the park bench.
Yeah. Meanwhile, some dude runs up and snatches it and
You're
runs
just
away.
like, I can't see. And move this way so the sun isn't over here.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. I mean, it's not a super exciting entry because it's so much review, and it's like I'm worried about like how much there is for me to do as someone who doesn't want to play super competitively and doesn't have a lot of friends that want to come over and whack Pikachu over the head with a baseball bat. But like, it is itself, and it's good, and
It's gonna do huge.
Yeah, it does.
People who love Smash, I'm sure, love it. It's just
Definitely the highest profile thing they've got coming out for the rest of the year.
But you could see the fatigue at E3, like we mentioned earlier. There was really no line to play this game at all, whereas Zelda and Mario had people lapped around the convention
You know
center.
what it is. You know what you're getting. That
I
could
think
also
that's the best testament to the fact that this game doesn't bring a whole lot that's new to the table.
right, but it's also kind of like, in light of something like Soul Calibur 6, it's like, well, at least they didn't screw it up.
No, good point. At least they didn't fundamentally change something everybody thought was okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like not that Smash Brothers hasn't. You remember back in Brawl?
Oh, yeah.
Suddenly they added the ability to randomly trip.
Yeah, that's right.
That's
really dumb.
It was.
That-
It
I
was
mean,
really dumb.
I never think that was a good idea. Random anything in a
I don't know if
competitive
that's ever
game
been adequately
is
explained.
never a good idea.
No. I don't know if that's ever been adequately explained.
It's just a bad decision.
Yeah, I don't know where that came from.
Nobody's perfect. All right, let's move on. Next, best driving game.
My pick for this is Forza Horizon 4 because
Can't go wrong there.
I love Forza Horizon. I love the UK, and I can't wait to play Forza Horizon in the UK. Like, I don't have anything better to say than that. I mean, I love the season changes are great. Like, it feels like exactly the right kind of update for the Forza games. I've been wanting better weather and more. I mean, they've had the day-night thing, but like Forza lagged behind in those regards.
In every regard.
And
Didn't have weather forever. Didn't have vehicle damage for forever.
they had damage.
The first Forza?
I don't remember the first Forza very well, but they had damage before Gran Turismo.
It did. Well, yeah. Gran Turismo is the worst in all those regards.
But Forza Horizon, you didn't really notice the lack of day-night stuff too much in the main Forza game because they were sort of more about the circuit, more about the event to event.
Yeah.
But in Forza Horizon, it's just like, why is it always daytime
never
in Colorado?
changes.
And it's like, I think they've gotten better and better over the years. Playground Games does a great job. This looks amazing. Like the visuals look amazing, and also just the use of the weather and how it changes things up. And ponds freeze, and you can drive
you
over
don't
them
have to buy
now, and all that
DLC to
stuff.
race in weather now.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll find some other thing to buy DLC for.
Well, yeah, of course they will.
I would be surprised if we didn't see another Hot Wheels style thing.
Yeah,
Because
sure.
that thing sold so well. But I can't wait for this. This looks really good. It's actually coming this year. And, yeah.
I totally get it, obviously.
It's
Forza
the wonder-
Horizon 3 is still my driving game of the generation.
Yeah,
so
it's the one recurring expected Microsoft franchise entry series that I still look forward to every time.
So what you just said there, expected, is exactly why I did not pick it. You're right. The weather will change this a lot. Before you had to pay money to race in the snow or whatever. Now it's just a part of the base game. But I decided to pick a game that I thought was actually at least trying something new and doing something different, and that is The Crew 2. The morphing vehicles that will morph from vehicles into planes, into boats, keeps you on your toes. It keeps the game feeling fresh. It allows you to kind of pick and choose what you want to play depending on maybe how good you are at each one of the vehicles. It is the only driving game at E3, although a couple have come out recently that were pretty innovative, but it was the only driving game at E3 2018 that actually felt like something different, or the developers were trying to do something outside of the norm. And look, again, Forza Horizon 3, so far my driving game of the generation. But I've enjoyed the time I've spent with The Crew 2, although underground for Ubisoft at the show.
Yeah, not a lot. I mean, I guess because it's coming out in like 2 weeks.
Right.
Like, it's
But
not
yeah,
really-
it wasn't like a part of the booth really. There was signage,
No.
but it wasn't really playable. They
I
had
just-
done that last year.
Yeah, I went Forza because I love Forza Horizon every time, and I thought The Crew 1 was a nice try,
Yeah.
and I felt like it needed a lot of work on its driving model and how everything balanced out and what it gave you to do and where and when. And adding like 3 new forms of transit is not really my idea of fixing that.
No, I
So-
totally get your
So I
position.
get that what you mean when you say that it's like, oh, it was actually trying something new, but just because you are unique does not mean you are useful. And so like I'm in super skeptical wait and see mode on The Crew 2, but I really hope it's good because I like flying planes.
Well, I thought The Crew
all I got.
1 was good, but not great.
Yeah.
And so I would assume that the sequel will be improved. That's not a gimme.
That is usually how games work these days, certainly. But
That's not a gimme.
No,
But
I wish I'd gotten into that beta. I'm really curious about it, but now Forza is such a sure thing to me that like that.
it absolutely is. And look, I'll be perfectly honest with you. I'm guessing Forza Horizon 4 scores way higher than The Crew 2.
Yeah.
Like, just being honest. But I tend to try to reward games that try to innovate maybe more than most do. And this, to me, is a game that's trying to innovate and change things a little bit. And so I'm going to applaud
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I get you. I just feel like they might be have gone over to this, just throw everything in, just
Yeah.
do something. We don't know. I do like that they kept the cop chases. That was a cool addition to the last game.
Yep.
And if anything, you know, they're going to support that thing forever.
Absolutely. So. Yeah, Ubisoft is great with support. So there you go. Driving game, best driving game of E3. It's time to move on to best adventure game. And what we mean by adventure game is stuff like point and click, walking simulators, things where there's really no action in the game. It's all about exploration and puzzle solving. People always get confused by that, so I thought I'd bring it up. And what's your pick?
My pick is, again, just like Ghost of Tsushima and the graphics, it's another visual style thing. But my pick is Sable. Which,
this one may have been flying under people's radars.
A little bit. I feel like we saw like a little like visual demo of it. It didn't have a name before, but I feel like they put out like a little quick video of that character riding their like little hover thing at some point a while ago. But we don't know a whole lot about this thing yet. But the art style and the visual look is very much inspired by Mobius and kind of the French like space opera sci-fi stuff. The tradition.
I love the art style.
The tradition that stuff like heavy metal and Valerian comes out of, and I love.
Reminds
that
me
stuff.
A little bit of like Ion Flux.
Oh yeah,
ways.
no, that's definitely in the same family for sure. And I love that art style, and I love the way they've translated it into 3D here. And of all the adventure stuff that kind of like made me sit up and notice, because it wasn't a ton. It wasn't a lot.
It was pretty thin.
This one's got my eyes on it until
it's pretty
out.
thin of everything at E3. Let's be honest.
Yeah, it wasn't.
There was not a ton of games. I played the majority of all the games I needed to play in one day.
Yeah, it was stunningly easy to see just about everything you needed to see in one morning.
There wasn't a lot of playable games there.
No,
I mean,
not at all.
Like
probably because, and I think that's because you're expecting the public to come in, and one of the things that I think the companies learned last year is you can't let everyone play everything, or the lines are just never going to end.
Yeah.
And so they gave them more experiences and things to take pictures with, and sort of chances to win things, or like they gave out pins or whatever.
Yeah, I was interviewing people, and one guy refused to do the interview unless I gave him a pin.
That's a lesson for next year.
No, a lesson I will never do it again. I'm kidding.
But
it was funny. It's like, I'm like, hey, would you like to do an interview about your E3 experience? He's like, are you going to give me a pin? And I was like, no. And he's like, then no thanks.
Kind of makes you wish you just had like a pin.
Yeah, like literally like a stick pin, and just handed it to him. There you go.
Here, have fun tacking that up on the. But no, Sable was the thing.
That one had gone on. I hadn't even seen it until you gave me your pick for it. Then I went and watched it, and I was like, oh, I see where Matt's coming from on that one.
Yeah, it's like one of those things I don't really know anything about, but like adventure games are more about the hands-on experience, and it's got my attention until it's out. I love that look. I love the visuals. I love Mobius stuff.
It looks cool for sure. All right, time for my pick. My pick comes from Don't Nod. Is there any developer in the industry that has gone from obscure indie developer into just full-blown development powerhouse? Then Don't Nod.
I mean, it reminds me of Telltale.
It's insane. It has just exploded.
Yeah, except they seem to vary things up a lot more than Telltale did.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, they just put out Vampire, which we've talked about the last couple
two
episodes.
games at E3.
Right.
This was definitely my number 2 pick. If I wasn't such a giant fanboy of French sci-fi comics, this would probably have been my pick too.
Well, I mean, they also had The Walking Dead's final season there, which I'm sure is going to be great. At least I hope so. I hope it goes out on a high note. But I actually chose the game that they just debuted. It's called The Awesome Adventures of Captain Spirit. This is, they say it's set in the Life is Strange universe, but to me
certainly
that's
set in the Life is Strange engine.
Yeah. But to me, that's just, I think they just put that in there. I mean, I doubt there's going to be any ties between Life is Strange.
Well, I'm
and
sure
this.
there'll be some similar, like same brands and things or something, or like whatever. But what I take from that is that clearly the Life is Strange universe has sort of a magical realist, Max has superpowers, a superpower of a kind, and so I wouldn't be surprised if something like that happened to this kid too. It's like it's a world where that kind of thing can happen. I think that's what that means.
I think that's a good point, Matt. And this game is about a young boy who has a very active imagination. His mother has recently died. His father's turning into an alcoholic, drinking beer in the daytime.
This is not the continuation of Calvin and Hobbes I expected.
It is definitely not. And he has a really active imagination. He thinks he's a superhero. And I think part of the mystery of the game is, are all these things that are happening, are they in his mind, or are they really happening? Does he really have superpowers? is it really supernatural? And I think that was kind of part of the angle with Life is Strange as well. I think that was kind of the questions I was asking myself when I was playing it, is like, is this all just like delusion, or is this really happening? Mm-hmm. And I think that sort of that similar flavor is a part of this as well. Don't Nod already has laid down the template for branching story paths. We all know it can do those very well. Mm-hmm. Decisions with consequences, it does that very well. I like the art style fits well for this game, I think. I like the complete shift in tone from Life is Strange.
And it's apparently free?
Is it free?
It said it's free to download. I mean,
really?
Maybe that's just the first part or something. I wasn't clear on that.
It could be the old drug dealer model.
Yeah, but they said it was free. They said it was a free download.
That's great. So, to me, that was the most impressive adventure game at the show. I never even saw Sable until today, but...
I don't think they had it, like, playable at the show or anything, but they did release the trailer, I think, Tuesday.
Gotcha.
And it just, I don't know. It's one of those things that just caught my eye. And I'm like, hey, someone made a thing in my head, So.
But I like how Don't Nod is like switching it up. It's
Don't Nod is not just making the same. Telltale.
It's like Telltale. It's like, you're gonna make
we got
another...
a formula. We're just gonna do it over and over and over. But like, Don't Nod has no intention of resting on its laurels.
I wouldn't be surprised if Don't Nod gets snatched up by a smart publisher here real soon. If I was a publisher and I had the money to make an acquisition, I would buy Don't Nod.
You could do worse.
And I would give them a new graphics engine.
If I were Warner Brothers, I would probably be looking at them. It's like, hey, we're going to buy you, and we're going to make you make DC story-based games.
Not a bad idea.
I mean, that would be a tragedy in the sense that they wouldn't make stuff like Life is Strange anymore.
Right, yeah.
But they are, Life is Strange already got handed off to somebody else.
Yeah, it did.
So.
And it wasn't as good.
I hope they come back and do Life is Strange 2 before they get bought and absorbed into some kind of corporate behemoth.
Yeah.
But this is good too.
They are ripe for the picking.
They are hot. They're on fire.
I don't know how they're turning out so many games. It's insane.
I don't know how big that company is, but clearly they've been able to expand in the wake of Life is Strange's success.
Yep.
So, good.
All right.
I think it's nice to see a smaller company kind of make it big make it successful, not necessarily big.
Yeah.
But
they might be big.
Yeah, but they've kind of cut out a niche of success for themselves in a very difficult industry with games that are not super flashy and not super
They're not
promoted.
what you would consider like
They're just
mainstream
good.
games. Yeah.
They're just good.
Great storytellers.
So I always like it when that happens.
Yep. Next up, best trailer. We're coming down the home stretch here. Just 3 categories left, folks. Best trailer. There were a lot of great trailers at E3 this year, I thought.
It was a very trailer E3.
Yeah, I mean, that's really all we got for a lot of stuff. I would have maybe even tossed Battlefield into this pile, but it doesn't count because we got that trailer before the show even started. So that wasn't a part of the selection process.
Battlefield was oddly absent this at E3. I mean, I know it's probably because EA
it
was at their other thing. But it's just, even at like the press conferences, just
But see, that's the mistake when you leave E3. It's like, think about how many people never went to EA. I mean, there were 70,000 people at E3, and how many of those do you think actually made that sojourn over to EA?
It almost didn't enter my head.
I know, because it's so far away. You just shut it out of your mind. So they have Battlefield, which people on the show floor should be able to experience Battlefield. Nope. It's just like it wasn't even a part of the show. And
I was going to say, well, at least they could put it in Microsoft. But
no. Nope. Can't do that either. So yeah, Battlefield just became like this lost game at E3, and that's all EA's fault. So anyway, what's your pick for the best trailer of E3 2018, Matt?
My pick is the CG trailer for Beyond Good and Evil 2.
That's 2 years running.
Yep.
Last year, both of us gave it to Beyond Good and Evil.
Yeah, this one again, and you're again in the same boat as my last pick, where it comes out of this French space opera tradition. And you can see it here. It's just that kind of imaginative sort of like, oh, it's in the rings of this, but it's also a ship. You
want to know what it is, though, about these trailers, Matt?
What?
They tell a story.
Yeah, that's true.
That's really what it is. They feel like the trailer for like a film or something like that. They get you invested in the world. They get you invested in the characters. These aren't worrying about like, hey, let's show how the combat works, or hey, let's show how the traversal works.
They build a world, and they show you kind of like what you'll be playing in.
And they do it really, really well.
Yeah. And it helps that this is a return of two characters Jade. That I love from that first game.
Yeah.
I don't know how they're going to connect all this up with that first game, but I can't wait to see them do it.
Yeah.
And I like the new character. All this stuff looks great. Like the kind of the.
I wonder who's producing these.
I don't know.
They're really good.
Maybe it's Blur. Blur Studios, they're up
These
there.
trailers are costing a lot of money.
Yeah, that's the other reason I like it is because it proves that they're committed to this game.
I bet you this trailer probably cost $250,000-$300,000.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yep.
Also, like, frankly, I would just watch this movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, it doesn't even.
Absolutely.
If you wanted to make just a full-length movie out of this, like,
Yep.
I would watch that too. Like, I don't
Absolutely.
even need it to be a game.
Yep.
But yeah, I was glad to see this come back. I was worried we'd have another year of vanishing beyond good and evil, but I love the expansion to the world we've seen here. I like the tease of Jade. I like the crazy space stuff, and like when the fighter pilot, when she's trying to catch up to the ship and she ejects out and like she has that like kind of magic space suit that's sort of going around. That's that space opera thing where it's like nothing needs to, you don't need to explain stuff. It just needs to work
happens,
because
yeah.
everything's just commonplace in terms of things that would be impossible for us in terms of space travel.
Right.
Like the space travel is just sort of there incidentally to tell this crazy story, and that's definitely what they seem to be doing here, and I love it.
And look, I'll be perfectly honest with you. This was the best trailer at E3 2018.
Mm-hmm.
I just couldn't pick it again 2 years in a row.
I didn't even remember I picked it.
We
last
both
year,
did last
so.
year, yeah. Well, I went back to prepare for this and saw all our picks from last year.
Well, you do your research, and I'm just like, I like the monkey. You know, it's just like there's a difference in approach.
I mean,
there.
but look, editorially, I probably still should have chosen this trailer because it is the best trailer from E3 2018.
Yeah, but I got it covered.
But so my
This way we
pick-
get to say two things.
Yeah.
That's good.
I went with the Resident Evil 2 remake.
I mean, that's a super legit pick too.
And the reason I went with it is because it does something that Capcom does very often. It starts its trailers and you have no idea what they're for. Mm-hmm. Capcom
Yeah, that's true.
is a master of that.
They did that with Devil May Cry 5. too.
Absolutely. You start watching a trailer, you're like, what is this? What could this be? And then there's that reveal moment. And then it just delivers. Like this trailer, very well cut. It has the perfect mix of everything to let you know, hey, this is how we're handling this remake.
Yeah.
Like there's still puzzles in there. There's still insane gore in there. There's over-the-shoulder shooting a la Resident Evil 4. Holy crap, look at these graphics. Holy crap, look at that gore. It's just everything that you would want in a Resident Evil trailer with mystery and then a reveal and then the payoff. And that to me is a good template to use for a trailer for anything.
Yep.
Doesn't matter whether it's a video game, a movie, some project that you're whatever. That's a good strategy to use to debut
It
anything.
also is a nice reminder that some of the most talented trailer editors and producers in entertainment today are working in video games.
No, you're right.
Like,
Absolutely.
'cause
A lot of them
a lot
work
of-
in both, though, too.
Yeah, a lot of those trailer houses do both, but like, there's and some you got to work with what you got to work with, but
Yeah.
like, man, I see a lot flatter and less non-interesting movie trailers than I do high-profile game trailers.
See, there's also the callback there, too, where the mouse gets killed.
Yep.
Like, there's just so much good stuff in this trailer.
And
man.
I think people are going to refer to this trailer for a long, long time to come. And all I can say is that whoever has to make the next Resident Evil trailer, good luck.
It'll be boring.
It won't.
It'll just be like gameplay clips snapped together.
I mean, for whatever the next game is,
Oh,
the
got
next
it, got it.
debut, Resident Evil 8,
Right.
or the remake of 3, depending on how well this does. I
Yeah,
guess.
which could be likely. Because I think this game's going
I
to
think
do
it's gonna
real,
do really
real well.
well, yeah.
Yeah.
It's in the right place too. Late January is the right place for this game, I think.
Yep.
I wouldn't mind a Resident Evil 3 remake in that
No.
in that vein.
Not at all. Capcom can just keep doing it. I mean, until you get even... Well, 4's already been kind of
4's already been kind of
remade.
remastered, and
Yeah.
I don't think anybody wants a remake of 5.
No, or 6. I mean, you don't really need to. They're already 1080p.
Just use it to buy time for Resident Evil 8, whatever
Yeah.
that's going to turn out to be.
Exactly. And then we have an honorable mention. I think this is an honorable mention for both of us.
Yeah.
And once again, it's Cyberpunk 2077.
That's a great
That
trailer.
trailer did blow my freaking mind. Like, I never dreamed that's what the game was going to look like. Sam, actually, bring up the old trailer of Cyberpunk, the one where the bullets just flying like past the girl's face. Because this is what we first saw of the game. And what we see here,
This is very expected cyberpunk look.
this is nothing like what the game ends up looking like, though.
Yeah, well, this is, how old is this? Like
4
6,
years,
7
5
old?
years old. Yeah.
I feel like this was like, yeah, right. This was before Witcher 3 came out. This is like
It is.
2013 or
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a long time. So seeing this is what I
Yeah.
expected from the game.
Well, I mean, also remember, part of this is because the reason this girl is the teaser, and the reason she's the statue they gave out at the event is because she was on the cover of the original RPG,
Right.
of the original book.
Yep.
who knows if she's? I mean, the blade things are in the game. I mean, the V, the character you play, definitely can use the blades and hang from the wall and do all this stuff with the scythe blade things.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is just a flavor teaser basically, and I like that.
So,
they
but that set
showed-
the tone for me. Like I was like, okay, this is what the game's gonna look like.
Yeah.
And then they drop the real trailer.
Well, the sun also can rise in the game.
Yeah,
it turns
yeah,
out.
yeah.
So like that's what I like is like
it's just
you know,
like Dayglow though. It's got this really saturated, almost neon look to it.
yeah, but when it becomes, I mean, it's called Night City. There will also be night and
Yeah.
neon and all that. It'll be okay. It'll look like this too, you know. There's room for both, and I like that because you know, some cyberpunk is just sort of the Blade Runner like oppressive thing. So everything's dark and everything's dirty and it's always raining and it's always nighttime and stuff. But like when you think about it, like a cyber dystopia needs to have a pretty shiny kind of surface for the sheep to kind of be content. And then like when
Yeah.
you're the punk in the part of cyberpunk, when you're the punk, that's when you see the underbelly and you see the dark stuff
Right.
underneath, and you walk the street when all the sane people are inside and stuff. And I love that they doubled down on kind of that bright surface tension of the world. I think that's really cool.
The other thing I would say too is that now that I've seen a demo of the game, this trailer does a great job of encapsulating the game. Actually, that robot they just showed, that's the robot I was talking
Oh, that
about
you're trying
before.
to- yeah, you're
That's
trying
the
to
one
get.
that you have to go and buy. That little like mini bot or whatever. But now that I've seen the game being played, this is a great cross section of what the game is like.
And I just wish it was sooner.
They just showed him pulling out the eyeball right there. Did you see that? It's funny watching this now, like seeing
Like,
all
you
these
see
really
all the
quick
bits,
cuts. Yeah. A great trailer, and probably any other E3, it probably would have won trailer of the show.
Yeah.
That is a really, really good trailer. Now more so that
I mean, it's up
seen
there,
it.
but it's just like, man, I can't wait for Beyond Good and Evil 2. Like, it's just
Yeah.
Beyond Good and Evil 2. I mean, that's a tone poem trailer
Yeah.
basically. Whereas Beyond Good and Evil 2 told a really good story and kind of like really expanded on what we already knew about it. And not to say Cyberpunk didn't, but it's just like I would have watched another 20 minutes of that Beyond Good and Evil 2.
Oh, I'd have watched like 2 hours
for
of it.
sure. And
Yeah, absolutely.
it had to be my pick for that.
All right. Here we go, folks. It's time for... Actually, it's not yet.
Yeah, one
Biggest
more.
surprise is next before Game of Show. So here we go. For biggest surprise, first thing I would say is there were no damn surprises.
Not too
Everything...
many. No.
Everything was leaked out beforehand, and some stuff was leaked out that actually never even did show up.
I think we picked good ones though.
I think we did.
Although for some
Absolutely.
reason you go first on this one.
Okay, that's fun. I'll switch it up.
You switched it around.
So my pick for biggest surprise is, and I'm probably saying this wrong, Sekiro, Shadows
pretty
Die
close.
Twice. And the reason this is surprising to me is because it's really nothing like a From Software game. It has a jump button.
Well, it is like a From Software game. It's just not like a Souls game.
Right. Yeah, it's not a Souls game really at all.
It's a straight. It's like we were saying, a dying genre. It's a straight action adventure game.
It is, yeah. It's really closer to Tenchu than anything.
Yeah,
Because
well,
you have a grapple hook.
Yeah. Well, they said in the interviews, like, they originally started thinking about making a Tenchu game, and they decided that Tenchu had been iterated on so much by other studios, they'd rather just like
Had
make
it?
their own thing. Yeah, there's been several others that made. There's been a bunch of Tenchu games.
I can't... Wait, Tenchu games or other or
Tenchu.
clones?
Tenchu.
Oh, okay.
There's been like 8 Tenchu games, and only one of them was good.
Yeah,
it was
I
like,
know.
It's so they decided just to make their own thing, and I think that was the wiser choice. It's just, I think it's surprising, and not surprising in a bad way, that like this is not.
It's not a Souls game.
There's no HP, there's no souls, there's no upgrading, there's no weapons to find, there's no loot, there's no armor. It's like you are him, and you are Sekiro, and you have your abilities, and you are fighting stuff.
I will
That's
say
it.
this, not a great looking game.
No, it's
The
not.
textures in this game look really bad.
It ain't
I
no-
don't know if this is From Software's A team or not, to be honest
It
with you.
is.
It is?
It is. It's the people that made Dark Souls 3, as I understand it, which is the A team.
Why does it not look that good graphically?
I don't know. Maybe they're trying to do other stuff under the hood. I wouldn't.
possible.
I don't know enough technical stuff to know that for sure. But again, graphics aren't everything.
But
And,
big surprise, 1, because it's not a Souls game, 2, because it's not Bloodborne 2, 3, because it's not even Souls-like.
Right.
It's just a hack and slash action adventure game.
There's a slight art style similarity. I think the monster. You can see that these guys came from
Yeah, you can see
from
it
the
takes-
Dark Souls artists. Maybe
Yeah.
like they're in there a little bit.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Some of the tone of it maybe a little
But
bit.
I'm really intrigued by it. I like the fact that the sword hits are basically lethal, and the combat is more about creating an opening
It's
and
still
like getting
high-risk
that lethal
combat,
hit.
yeah.
But it's different than what we've seen in the Souls game.
Absolutely.
It's, in terms of how the combat comes together, I'm interested to see how they make that all work, because games where the sword is super lethal and it's all about kind of the defense means you're usually cheating a bit in terms of making things not exploitable or too easy. I mean, you saw that with like if any game where the lightsaber is super lethal, like you have
Yeah.
a problem with that. But
Bushido Blade. is kinda
Bushido
like
Blade
that.
a little bit. I mean, yeah, but what they're going for, the idea behind their combat system and what they're trying to make here is really interesting to me, and definitely on board for it. I'm interested to see what you think of it, because it seems like it's more up your alley in terms of like just having a straight stand-up street fight. kind of
Here's the thing. I wish they had kept the aesthetics of their old games with the gameplay from this game. Because now I'm like, hey, here's a From Software game that I'm pretty excited to play, but now they got rid of the awesome Dark Souls like aesthetic. Like, I've always loved the style of Dark Souls, the art and the setup and the lore about it. I just don't like having to play the same fight over and over again, and the weird save system and all that.
Well, now I'm interested in this game. I'm interested to see if it might not be more challenging than the Souls games.
It's possible.
Because the thing about what they're doing here is it means they know exactly what you can do and what you're capable of in every situation, because the
Yeah.
character isn't customizable.
No, you're right.
So they could throw some really gnarly stuff at you.
Well, they're
Whereas
always
like in
gonna
Dark Souls,
know-
you always have to kind of hedge your bet on, like, if you haven't like upgraded all your strength, you can't have the people that went magic like die
Right.
here and never be able to get through
Yeah.
it.
Now you will know what the max power of the player will be.
Yeah, this will be a really
At all times.
really strong and no multiplayer. No, I appreciate this bold. It's a bold choice to kind of break away from this thing that's been their success for almost
Been a
10
cash
years.
cow for them, yeah.
And but I'm into it. I mean, and it's funny that like there's so many like samurai thing. We got also
Yeah,
Ghost
what
of
is up with
Tsushima,
that?
But like you would never confuse the two in
Oh,
terms
no.
of what they're going for, or certainly what they look like, but also like what they're after
Yeah.
in terms of the game.
But for example, compare the visuals in this game to Ghost of Tsushima.
Yeah, but I don't know. The Dark Souls games are cool art style games, but they were never the cutting edge of graphics tech.
I don't know. I thought Dark Souls 3 looked pretty darn good, man.
It's all right. I mean, but it's like
It looked better than this.
it did look better than this.
Why
but
is that?
I don't know.
Isn't that weird?
I don't know. I didn't make it. Like
Well, obviously not, but
It's,
I'm trying to figure out why that would be.
I don't know. You're definitely seeing much larger areas there than there were in Dark Souls 3.
Yeah, that may be
Like,
part of it.
I mean,
the
most-
texturing, though. Texturing is a big thing.
Texturing looks about on par to me. To me, it's the lighting. I think the lighting is less stark, and it feels flatter. Like the lighting in all of this feels a little flatter.
Some of the close-ups on those characters, those textures look terrible, man. Like,
Yeah, but
terrible.
go boot up Dark Souls 3 and get a real close look at your character's face. It's not gold.
I'm not even talking about their face. It's like their clothes and their skin.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like I don't know. But anyway, I'm still excited for it, and it was
Let's
a big
just blame
surprise.
Activision.
From Software definitely threw everybody a curveball, and there weren't many curveballs at E3 2018. Which one did you pick, Matt?
My big pick for biggest surprise was Star Fox in Starlink.
Yeah.
Which I mean, partly because when we were watching the Starlink trailer in the Ubi conference, I think it said this is the Star Fox game that Nintendo will never make for me, and then Star Fox's logo popped up, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
Like what a perfect fit, and like I don't know how they pulled that one off to convince Nintendo, like, hey, you should get in on this.
Nintendo probably played it and realized it was twice as good as Star Fox Zero.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I played it a little bit on the floor, and like I really liked what it was.
Yeah, I was impressed with this game too.
Because it's tempting to think it's like some kind of like kiddie sort of my first shooter thing, but no,
Right.
it's legit. It's kind of like No Man's Sky as an arcade shooter.
A little bit, yeah.
Where like you're up in the solar system, you can fly down to the planet, you fly around. It's like an open world, and there's like these monster Titan things like dropping like some kind of like reactor things on the ground you got to destroy, and you got to destroy the Titans before they like terraform the planet, kind of thing. It's a lot going on here, and if you like, I'm a big arcade starfighter shooter person, and it's like it's one of those kind of games people just don't make anymore. I don't know how this got made, but
Yeah.
I'm not going to argue with it. And Star Fox being in it is a pretty great surprise because it's
Well, it's
clearly
a Toys to Life game, so you're also
Yeah.
going to get an R-Wing.
Oh, for sure. And all the stuff is can be digital only. You don't have to buy a toy at
Yeah.
all. You never have to buy any physical toys if you don't want to, but they are going to be there for you. I will even if I don't buy the toys, I will buy the R-Wing.
The R-Wing, yeah.
The R-Wing was on display there, and it looked amazing. And they're big.
It'll be interesting to
they're
see if
big.
Nintendo flags this on YouTube.
That's a good question. Yeah.
I have a feeling it might.
But honestly, I would have been totally fine with that Star Fox Grand Prix thing because I was getting my Star Fox game.
Yeah.
But then that didn't happen.
didn't happen.
But like, if only one of them was going to happen, I'm glad it was this one.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a big surprise for me and a nice, pleasant shock.
Even though Ubi seems to do like a partnership with Nintendo every year.
Yeah, I mean, I
It
didn't.
seems to be like a recurring thing.
Well,
now.
I predicted that we were going to get something like that, but I sure didn't think it was going to be this.
Funny
So,
anecdote.
Awesome.
The day after their press conference when this was unveiled, I'm in the elevator, get to my apartment, it's late, I'm going up the elevator, and these people get on the elevator with me, and they're like, hey, how are you? And I'm like, oh, I'm tired. And they're like, oh, yeah, what have you been up to? And I was like, oh, I was at this crazy game show called E3 all day today. And they're like, oh, you were at E3? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, we work for Ubisoft. And I was like, really? And I'm like, oh, you guys had a great press conference today. I'm like, congratulations on the Star Fox announcement. And they go, we actually work on Starlink.
I didn't know that Ubi had people down
I
there.
didn't either. I didn't even know they had an office in LA.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I had seen these folks several times. For whatever reason, I can tell when someone's a gamer. But I always thought for whatever reason they worked at Riot. And nope, they work at Ubisoft.
That's a pretty good bet if you're in that area of town.
Because I live like literally a mile and a half from Riot or whatever.
Yeah.
And no, they work at Ubisoft on Starlink. So there you go. They were very, very excited about that. They said that they had been waiting quite a while for that announcement to be made. It was very hard to keep it under their hat. But anyway, yeah, so that's it for Biggest Surprise. And now we have just one category left, Best of Show. We have no trailer of the week this week because this is a special episode. So if you have any questions for us,
You've
get
seen
them.
plenty of trailers.
Yeah, you see. I think you've seen enough of those
It's the
tonight.
trailer show already.
Yeah. So if you have any questions for us, get them into the chat right now before we pick our game of the show. And it always helps if you go at Sifted Games. That way we can pluck them out of the chat much easier and get the questions answered as quickly as possible. So, with all that said, it's time for our game of the show for E3 2018. And this is a case where we share the same game, and I have a feeling it's going to be the same game that is shared on every publication all around the world, and that game is Cyberpunk 2077. Not only is this game of the show, this game might be the game of forever. I mean, I'm not even like speaking in hyperbole, Matt. This game literally just blew me the F away.
That is the funniest thing about this E3 is how it's like how the internet seems to be accusing everyone who saw Cyberpunk of being hyperbolic. And everyone I know, even the least exaggerating prone people I know are like, that's the most amazing thing I've ever seen.
It is
like,
unreal.
Like when you have that kind of like agreement across the board that this is one of the most impressive things that's ever been shown at an E3.
Seriously.
Like, I don't know what else you need. I mean, it sucks that they won't so far release it for
will.
the public. They will eventually. Like,
I mean, the demo was crazy
they
polished.
did with The Witcher eventually.
Yeah, there was
as well.
I mean, other than some of the pop-in that I saw on some of the buildings, it was just flawless.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there is just crazy stuff going on all over the place. Like, I want to watch that demo like 5 or 6 times over because I kept picking up like these little details of what enemies were doing in the scene, non-playable characters were doing in each scene. It's man, it's just hard to put into words how many cool things I saw in this game. It's like I described in my E3 diary, it's like The Witcher plus Grand Theft Auto plus Blade Runner. Mm-hmm. That's probably the best way I could describe it. And I think that's a pretty potent concoction there.
That's a pretty crazy triple threat.
Yeah. It's this game is going to be
And it also,
huge.
I feel like it's delivering in some ways on the promise Deus Ex was never able to keep.
Absolutely.
You
Yeah.
know, like this feels like, especially with the quest branching and kind of how that can all change, it just seems like this is what Deus Ex wanted you to think it could do,
And
but
it
never
just
really
couldn't.
did.
Yeah.
And here we have sort of a realization of that.
I think one of the things, too, that really struck me after I walked out of that demo was how connected I felt to the characters and the world after just 50 minutes of playing the game. Like, they played as the female character in my demo. Mm-hmm. And by the time that 50 minutes was up, I gave a whole lot of crap about her. and what her aspirations were. Like, I wanted her to pick herself up by her bootstraps instead of being this person who's just doing these side jobs for scumbags. I wanted her to become like this bounty hunter or whatever she ultimately is going to become, just to ascend to something better, because they did such a good job of explaining how her life was and how her day-to-day living was and the people that she was constantly interacting with. And they were just, you felt sorry for her, because it's like she lives in this cramped little space that has just this little portal window that looks out into this amazing possibility
CD
of a
Projekt
world.
Red is good at misery.
It's
What you see in The Witcher as well.
it just affected me in so many different ways, and then ultimately, it appears to be a great playing first-person shooter, which I'm a big fan of shooters. It just, for me, it just all melted together. And obviously, I love action RPGs, and I love Cyberpunk, and I love Blade Runner. It's like the Shane game. And maybe I'm a little surprised to see so many other people loving it as much as I do, because it really is like my wheelhouse, ultimately.
It's interesting to me because I'm a big CD Projekt Red fan. I've loved all the Witcher games they've done. I think they're a very pro-consumer company, and I was excited about Cyberpunk because I dabbled in that game in my pen and paper RPG youth a little bit. I was, but it's hard. It was always hard to get people to play that because everyone wanted to play the sword and sorcery stuff. They wanted the D&D kind of thing. And I was kind of wondering if this would be kind of, start to become more shown and more seen, and there would be people who just turned off by the Cyberpunk thing. Because Cyberpunk, as we've, again, there hasn't really been a hit Cyberpunk movie maybe ever.
Well, the last Blade Runner didn't do as well as they thought.
The first Blade Runner didn't do well either.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
and I thought the
infamous.
last Blade Runner was amazing.
Oh, that was great.
Yeah.
But like Ghost in the Shell live action movie didn't do well.
Yeah.
Again, not on par with Blade Runner 2049, but like Cyberpunk doesn't seem to penetrate the mainstream audience consciousness, but certainly it seems to have captured the imagination of the core gaming and game journalism demographic. Hopefully this can translate into kind of a breakout hit sort of thing.
Dude, the guns in this game are so freaking awesome. Like, I can't even begin to tell you. Like, the way that they work, their alt-fire modes. Like I said, there's a gun that banks. You can bang bullets off of objects. And
you can see, like your eye can see through the wall to the gun. You can bounce the shotgun.
You can bounce
off the wall.
Not only that,
hit
you
them.
have weapons that can shoot through walls. You can see the enemies through the wall and then shoot through the walls if it's not there. That's probably what shocked me the most about this game was the guns. Like the thought that has gone into them and how creative and interesting they are, which now that I'm seeing this debut the first teaser trailer for it, what is it focused on? A gun.
Yep.
I never even pieced it together until just now. But this game really is all about like the guns and the weapons. It was some of the coolest stuff that they showed in the whole demo. Anyway, like I said earlier in the show, let me know what you want me to do with the audio version of the presentation, and I will do it, and I will get it out for you guys. Like I said, I have the whole thing recorded, and I can just loop the trailer over and over so you can just listen to it. I can just put up a still image while you can listen to it. I can put it up as a podcast in our podcast feed. Just let me know what you want me to do, and I will do it. So there you go. Unanimous game of the show from Matt and I, Cyberpunk 2077. Easiest best of E3 game of show I've ever given. Think about that. I've been doing this for 20-some years. So hopefully you trust me when I tell you that it's not a bunch of malarkey what people are saying about this game. And I just saw it yesterday, the last day, too. Like, I just barely, slid in and got to check it out. I had to stand to watch it. Who cares? Totally worth it. Totally worth it. All right, let's get to some questions. All right. Let's see what we got here from Sifted Massive. I don't see any questions.
There's some.
See what happens with this app is it doesn't let me go back very far.
Well,
That's it.
because it goes to sleep.
Yeah.
So you've been missing the last 3 hours of chat.
Yep.
You gotta set it so it doesn't go to sleep. But I got some stuff. I mean, the app doesn't help me.
I
'cause
have
I'm not
two
sitting
questions
games.
in mind right now.
W. Matthew, with a bunch of games getting 60 FPS modes on enhanced hardware Pro and X, such as Forza Horizon 4 on the X, do you think 60 FPS mode as a choice will carry over to the PS5 and Xbox 2 or whatever?
Whatever it is. Wait, is he saying will it be an option or mandatory?
Option, I think. Because the Forza Horizon 4 basically it's the resolution versus frame rate thing. You have a mode where you can switch it to 60.
I would prefer to leave it an option because I'm okay playing some games at 30 frames per second. And if I can play a game at 30 frames per second and get better fidelity, I'm fine with that. I don't need to play every game at 60 frames per second. Now, some games I like at 60 frames. So to me, I think it's always better to have options. Always. No matter what you're talking about in life, I think it's always better to be able to choose what you would prefer.
Well, in this case, I think if it's not an option, you ain't getting the 60 because the developers are generally going to default to 30 because it looks better.
Yeah.
So I think the option should continue because I tend to pick 60, and so I'd like to continue to have that option. And I think if there is no option, you're usually going to end up with a game being 30 over 60 because it's just, if you're going to have to compromise, you have to make it look better, and looking better is what tends to sell the game. So that's why 30 frames per second and prettier is the more common standard than 60 frames per second and slightly less pretty. Although I will usually pick 60.
The only genres I really care about 60 frames per second are fighting games and shooters, first-person shooters.
I think driving games should be 60, no question.
Yeah.
Driving games at 30 are weird.
You know what? Thinking back to playing games like Beetle Adventure Racing on the
nice
N64.
wheels.
Yeah, like I can see your point because I remember in the old 3D era that if you had a racing game that did not have a great frame rate, it affected the gameplay.
Anything like that. I mean, even I'm playing a little bit of Just Cause 3 on Xbox One X now, just because it was cheap and I liked it, and on Just Cause 4 has me like wanting to play Just Cause. I was like, I'll tell you, on the PS4, the regular PS4, I struggled with those wingsuit challenge missions all the time, just constant, like retry. On this, first try every time.
Really?
So 60 FPS makes the difference.
Wow, that's crazy.
Like the little minor adjustments you have to make, it's a completely different world.
Wow, that's interesting to hear.
So yeah, it matters when it comes to like high speed, split-second decision stuff, and so I will always default to 60 on a racing game.
Interesting.
If I can.
Okay, now some questions are flooding in. Maybe mine is starting to catch up. Thank you, everybody, for thanking our curators. I appreciate that you're doing that. They worked really hard this week, and they deserve your praise. Loop it over nature footage. He's talking about the audio recording of the Cyberpunk presentation. Derek D111. Shane, do you know if that Cyberpunk trailer we've seen for years, the woman cyborg getting shot in the face, the one that we've shown like 20 times tonight, is in the game? Is the trailer in the game, or is the woman in the scene in the game?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, she's iconic to the Cyberpunk brand from back then, so it could be that she's just there to represent, I don't know if she's in there somewhere, but it wouldn't surprise me.
I did not see her in the game. She might be hidden there as an NPC or something, but if they originally intended that she was going to be the lead character in the game, she's been changed.
I don't think she is.
Because the lead character has
she's a specific person.
Okay.
She's a specific character.
Got you.
Like
the lead female character in this has like kind of a mohawk, but it like lays onto the side.
Well, it's all customization.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, you can customize everything about the character.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway,
hair,
the default,
tattoos, scars, everything.
Got you. The default character in this one, they didn't go into character customization. They showed the male, the default female, and they chose a female. And she had like half her head shaved with like some stripes on the side or whatever. So I don't know. I haven't seen it.
So punk. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if like something similar to that happened, but I feel like, that was just like an announcement trailer. It's like how in The Witcher 3, that original trailer where he fights the guys at the hanging tree and saves that woman. That's not in the game. But it is at the like one of the beginning things, I think, and like they reference that trailer in the game. Like Lambert makes fun of him for like he's like, I heard what happened, and he's like I thought you kill monsters. I am killing monsters, and he's like, I don't know, it just came out that way.
Hey, why don't you pull down what you got from E3 actually? Yeah. The glare may be too bad for people to really see it, but they're giving out a Cyberpunk figurine at E3. And it's her. It's the girl from the original teaser trailer. There you go.
Right there.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I did not get one, unfortunately, but Matt did. Oh yeah, you can just put it right there. There you go.
Yeah, the glare's still there, but you can kind of see.
Pretty sweet. Yep. Wolfox 10JC, how was Black Ops 4? A whole lot like Black Ops 3, in all honesty. I really couldn't feel...
Who could have known?
Yeah, I honestly couldn't feel much of a difference at all. It was just multiplayer matches just set up to just loop over and over on the same map and the same mission. If you like Black Ops 3, you're going to like Black Ops 4. The zombies weren't there to play, so I can't really give you any impressions of that. At least they weren't in Sony's booth where I played it. Gunplay feels great. It's a Treyarch shooter. The traversal is just pretty much sliding, which is kind of a shame. I kind of like the wall running from Black Ops 3, but at least they kept the sliding in there. So, yeah, there's really not much to report on. I mean, that's kind of the messed up part about Black Ops 4 is like when there's no campaign, it's like, what do you talk about?
Yeah.
It's going to hurt the free marketing and promotion of the game that it would normally get on podcasts and things like that. So,
But people are still talking about more than Anthem.
yeah, no, you're right. It's true. At least they asked me a question about Black Ops. They didn't ask about Anthem.
Justin Horman, do you think E3 is much different in 5 years? Is it still a huge show with tons of attendees, or does it get even bigger, or will it turn into more digital presentation videos and having a smaller footprint?
I mean, I said it, you maybe came in late, but I said it the early part of the show was that, we're back to the attendance level that the show was at in 2005. And 2005 is what prompted the big change to E3. Everyone in the industry was complaining it's getting too big, it's getting too annoying. And that ended up resulting in that weird E3 that happened in Santa Monica, which made people wake up and say, oh my gosh, this is dumb. It makes our industry look bad. Let's go back to the convention center. So I'm hoping that this time cooler heads prevail and they remember what happened last time where everybody jumped the gun and was like, we need drastic changes. And they make the drastic change and everybody hates it and they just end up going back to the old way. So I would hope that people would have the foresight this time to say, well, let's not make it into this pathetic looking thing anymore. Let's just find ways to tweak it here and there to kind of fine tune it a little bit. But would I be surprised if they were dumb and did it again? No, not at all, because life is just a big cycle where things just repeat and people refuse to learn from the past, but who knows?
Sony.
If I could look into the future, I'd be a very rich man, I'll tell you that.
Killzone 310, will we not see you at E3 next year after probably getting banned for sneaking into booths, picking fights with security, recording Cyberpunk audio, and sticking people with pins?
I didn't do anything illegal.
Famous last words.
And I was allowed to record the audio of Cyberpunk. We just weren't allowed to take video or photos of it. You're allowed to record audio if you wanted to. Although it seemed like nobody did. I think I might be the only person who did that. I haven't seen anything pop up or anything like that.
No, I haven't seen anything like that.
Yeah, so.
People probably just assume that if it doesn't have video, nobody cares.
But they were wrong.
But
I knew.
No, that presentation is worth hearing.
Exactly.
Even if you don't see it.
I knew it. As soon as I walked in there, I'm like, I'm recording audio of this because, maybe it takes 2 months before they put this out for everybody else. And I knew that because I had been in demos from CD Projekt Red before, I knew it was going to be information rich. And I just turned it on and let it roll. So I'll get it out to you guys ASAP.
Headingham J, what are your most surprising absences from E3?
Retro's game. Absolutely.
Yeah, almost everything I can think of is Nintendo related.
Yeah, Metroid
Prime
Prime 4.
And Splinter Cell.
Yeah, I mean, Nintendo
I mean,
gave all
Splinter
kinds
Cell
of...
was just speculation mostly, but it really felt like they were warming up to something. And Watch Dogs 3.
Yeah. But Nintendo gave all kinds of lame bullcrap excuses for why Metroid wasn't there and why Retro's game wasn't there. Basically contradicted themselves, saying, oh, we don't show games that are far out. Funny, you did it in this exact direct, and you did it last year. And then they tried to say, well, last year it was the first year of the console, and we really needed to get out in front of it. Well, how do you explain the stuff that you showed it this year as it isn't coming out this year? It was just a bunch of malarkey. So I was surprised, yes, that Metroid Prime 4 wasn't there. I was surprised that we don't know what Retro's working on still. I'm really starting to wonder if Retro is problematic again. If maybe they've lost some important employees and they're starting to fall back into their old ways where they have a bunch of projects and they can't get any of them greenlit from Nintendo, because we absolutely should have seen Retro's game by now. Absolutely should have seen it. So I don't know. I'm starting to get a little nervous that maybe something's going on at that studio at this point.
Something's up. Way up.
Yeah.
Something's up.
Where's Yoshi's Flippin'?
Yoshi's Flippin' Island, or whatever they're going to call it, is probably the weirdest absence to me because it was already there last year. And
We had
it's
like
just
an hour of gameplay of it already from the Treehouse last year.
Yeah, and it's just like
gone.
It's like, how does it take?
Nintendo's showing makes no sense whatsoever. None of it.
Like it's
None
just
of it makes
you're
sense.
just pooping out another Yoshi game. Like
Yeah.
how is it possibly that complex?
Not that I even missed it.
No, but like it's not like your release schedule needs everything you can get this year.
Yeah.
Like why is that not like your frickin' September game or something?
I don't know, man. It's really
don't
baffling. Here's a good one. The Abram. Do you feel better about Phil Spencer as the head of Xbox after this E3? Well, that's a weird kind of catch-22 because he's the one who got them into this mess in the first place. It's like he would have
Did
to.
he? I thought Don Matrick was kind of instrumental in sort of shredding that situation back.
Well,
when
Phil has been the head of studios this whole time. He knew more than anyone what was coming down the pipeline, what wasn't coming down the pipeline. He's the one who canceled Scalebound, knowing they had a more powerful console coming.
Would he
and
have
then
had-
saying that that they didn't have enough power to run Scalebound.
Would he had the power to like make that call, or could somebody have been saying no, you're going to do it this way?
Which call? Scalebound?
Whatever call about like how the studios were managed, like what was in the pipeline, like
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the head of their studios. That's his job
But who's
to
head of
manage
Xbox?
those studios.
But who's head of Xbox?
I don't even know. Who is it now?
I don't know. Used to be Matrick, I thought.
Yeah, I don't think it is.
But
though.
he's gone, so who's doing it now? They don't really trot him out, I guess.
No, I mean, Phil is the face of Xbox. He does their press conference.
Mm-hmm.
He runs all their studios. It all falls on him. If his studios are not producing content and good content in a timely manner, that's his responsibility. And it has been for a long time. And so he dug the hole that he filled a little bit in with this E3. Do you reward somebody for fixing their mistake? I guess a little bit, yeah.
I think you might be too hard on Phil there.
It's,
Why?
Because I've been in situations where I knew the right thing to do, but because of the people who were in charge above me, I couldn't do it.
But in what scenario? How would
He
this
still
scenario
answers
relate
to the head of Xbox. Like if they don't want to give him the budget to like fill that schedule properly, there's nothing he can really do about it. I mean, I don't know what happened with Scalebound. That's still a big question mark.
I mean, I don't know if it's about budget, though. It's about, these are the assets that you have, meaning the studios that you have under your tutelage, under your purview.
well, he doesn't have much, so now he bought 4 more of them. So good? I don't know.
But what happened that all of a sudden they're like, yeah, okay, now we're going to give you the money to buy studios?
Maybe he finally convinced some higher-ups that, yeah, there's a problem.
I mean, that's about 3 or 4 years, actually more than 3 or 4 years late.
You
I
know-
mean, we've been on the Gears, Halo, Forza cycle
Oh,
now
true.
for how long?
True,
6 years?
but you know how long it takes to convince these people in the suits, of the truth sometimes.
It's not that hard. It's not 6 years hard.
6 years, no, but he wasn't
It's
calling
like
those shots.
It's like 1 year of poor first-party sales.
He didn't set himself up with the Xbox One's first 3 years the way they did it. I mean, I'm sure it was not his call to have people that never touched a video game design the OS, or to have all the emphasis on being a pass-through box and a set-top box.
He's the one who greenlights the games, though. So you look
Mm-hmm.
at Fable Legends. He greenlit that game, and then ultimately
and then
decided.
he red-lit it.
Right.
But like, yeah, there's
That's a mistake. That's a huge
Oh, it's absolutely-
mistake.
absolutely a mistake,
That's
but
a
I-
mistake that costs a company probably $500 million, cost hundreds of people their jobs, left a huge gaping hole in their release schedule.
I just think there's more than one man at fault here.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Replacing Phil Spencer wouldn't solve the
but
problem.
Matt, that's how it works, though. When
It's
you're
how
the,
corporate culture works. That's
Right.
not necessarily how you solve a problem. I have a very dim view of corporate culture in that regard.
I think most human beings do. But having been someone who's been kind of in the top rungs of that, when shit goes wrong, the people at the top get canned. That's why they get paid the
Mm-hmm.
big money. Because it's like you're on the hook for stuff that you aren't actually doing. That's upper management. That's how it goes. Under his purview, Xbox first-party studios have completely floundered.
Well, I think that's why
Period.
Matrick's gone more than he's still there.
That's part of it, but he's been gone for years now. Like that, this is all on Phil. This
It
is
takes
his,
years to steer that
his
ship
job,
in another direction.
His
though.
responsibility.
I think if
he
this
failed.
doesn't work out and all these acquisitions of these new developers do not bear fruit in a rapid sense,
We won't know that for 5 years, though.
yeah, well, like I said,
That's a long time to keep somebody on the job who hasn't done a good job.
The ship
That's
tur-
why executives get canned when stuff like this happens.
the ship turns slowly.
It better turn a lot
Maybe
faster
nobody
than
else
it has
wants the
been.
job.
I think other people would absolutely take
Oh,
that
wants
job.
the job, but want the job, and Microsoft would think they could do it. Those are two different things.
I don't know. They could find people. Let's answer a couple more.
You just send him an email.
Send who an email?
Microsoft.
Should be like, hey, when you get rid of Phil.
I'm not qualified to do that job. Not at all.
But I still put more on Matrix's shoulders for the state of they're in right now. Spencer didn't help in a lot of ways, but
Any hype from Kadaz 1? Any hype left for games that missed the show? Final Fantasy VII Remake, Life is Strange 2, Splinter Cell, Mortal Kombat.
I mean, I'd play
First
any
of all,
one of those.
Square did go on record this week saying that Final Fantasy VII Remake is not in the early stage of production. It's well into production, and basically said people need to
Whatever
stop
that
freaking out.
means.
Right, but they said people need to stop freaking out about it. That,
Yeah, well, you took 10 years to release the last one, so I
Right.
can understand why people are freaking out.
you know, when you make your bed, you got to lie in it.
Show them 10 seconds.
Right.
Throw them a bone,
Yeah.
people. Like, come, it was a poor choice. I mean, if you're that deep in production, there must be something you could show somebody. I mean, that last trailer was just a mock-up, basically.
Yep.
But I understand why Final Fantasy fans are skittish right
Yeah.
now about that project.
To answer your question, yeah, there's still hype. Just because the
Yeah.
stuff wasn't shown at E3.
I'd play all 4 of those things you
Yeah,
put in front of me
absolutely.
right now. Sure.
Yeah. It's not going to change whether I'm excited for them. I think it hurts with their visibility, and I think
Yeah,
their
I mean-
cachet.
I mean, it sounds like Life is Strange 2 is so far out that
Yeah.
it doesn't matter right
You're
now.
not rolling up pre-orders with these games right now because they weren't
Yeah.
shown, but you're not worried about pre-orders yet for those
Yeah,
games.
and I feel like all those games next E3, like they're a year away.
They should be.
Yeah,
I mean, Final Fantasy VII Remake was already at E3.
yeah. I mean, I just don't think hype matters for something that's not going to be out that long. Cyberpunk 2077 notwithstanding, because I think that game's a pretty far way out too.
Here's one from the surly Mexican. With the backlash from the Nintendo Direct, do you think Nintendo will push out another Direct sooner than they might have originally to satisfy the stockholders? Oh, thank you, Wampler, for subscribing, man. Appreciate it.
That's a pretty good question.
Probably not.
My guess is no.
Yeah.
Like, Nintendo doesn't really do
Nintendo
that.
don't play that.
Yeah.
That's not how it does business. It has a schedule.
Yeah,
and
it
gonna
has
stick
its
to it.
plan and it sticks to it unless things go drastically wrong. And I just feel like this stock market thing is kind of an overcorrection.
Oh, absolutely.
And it'll bounce back.
It'll come back.
And it'll be fine.
What people don't realize is that Nintendo of Japan runs Nintendo. It probably doesn't even care what the U.S. stock market is doing. Like, it cares a little bit. I mean, it did lose 15% in like 5 days.
I mean, they noticed, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
I mean, they lost billions of valuation in 5 days. So they obviously are aware of it, but Nintendo is not the knee-jerk reaction company. That's what the other companies do. Nintendo takes its time. It comes up with new ideas. It executes them and launches them. They become a success. And then the other guys are left doing the knee-jerk stuff. That's not how Nintendo rolls. And that's one thing I do admire about Nintendo is it has a very steady hand on the wheel. It doesn't just freak out and follow trends. It sets the trends. And then you see everybody else freak out and try to follow the trends. So, yeah, I don't see it changing Nintendo's Direct schedule. If there's a Direct next month, I would say that Direct was scheduled for next month all along. One more. Gotta keep tapping things to see more messages. Major Tom. Supposedly, Platinum was using money for Scalebound to complete Nier Automata,
I heard that was
but I
not
can't
true.
corroborate that.
That was not true, as I heard. That was like some rumor thing.
Oh. If that were the case, then Phil had every right to cancel that game.
That would be a good reason to cancel, but I heard that was just like rumor and not a real thing.
Yeah.
I heard Platinum denied that. Of course, Platinum would deny that, but I don't know.
That I have not seen substantiated.
Here's the last one, the Legacy. If E3 moves to Vegas, what building should it be in regards to Sony corporations are as evil as their customers allow them to be?
It should be in the Las Vegas Convention Center.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only place it would ever be. I know maybe you've never been to Vegas, maybe you have, but if you've been to Vegas, you would realize that no casino in Las Vegas is big enough to hold E3.
No.
It's
Like maybe if you cleared the whole thing out and
maybe clear out
gutted
the
it.
whole strip
Yeah.
and like every casino became E3, it would fit. But yeah, there's a huge convention center
Don't
in
give
Las
them any
Vegas.
ideas.
Yeah, exactly. That would be kind of fun, actually. But
Be better than the Santa Monica one.
yeah, for sure. There's a huge convention center in Las Vegas, way bigger
Yeah.
than the one in LA. It's
Cavernous.
It's like 4 times the size of the LA
Like
convention
that's
center.
why San Diego Comic Con keeps like the
keeps bubbling to the surface, the idea of them moving to Vegas, because
Yeah.
the Las Vegas Convention Center could handle San Diego Comic-Con.
Absolutely.
That's how big it is.
Yeah.
Also, that whole section is nothing but hotels.
Yeah.
Like, it would work. It would.
Yeah,
It would
and there's
have-
just billions of hotels in
yeah.
Vegas.
I mean, the downside is you're in Vegas.
or to a lot of people, that's the upside.
and-
Although we would have some really great stories to tell if E3 was in Las
Probably
Vegas.
on the flip side, if you want to stop encouraging loot boxes, sending these
Yeah,
developers to Vegas is probably not the best way to make them stop thinking about
There
that.
would be all kinds of stories though about developers that like didn't show up for their demos the next day.
Just the stories of the Mandalay Bay parties and
Photos
who dove into
of-
the Shark Tank and did the
yeah,
it would be-
photos of developers at like strip clubs and stuff. It would, it
Mm-hmm.
would be bad, but awesome at the same time. So that's it. That's our best of E3 2018 episode for Game Face. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you guys have enjoyed E3. Hope you guys have enjoyed our coverage of E3. There's a lot more to come still. We got a bunch of content that we shot yesterday that we still got to get posted. Once we put up this episode and you guys start commenting, we'll figure out what to do with the Cyberpunk audio, and we'll do that for you guys. But it's been a great show. Matt, man, it's been a great E3 working with you, man. How many have we been through together now? 5, 6, 7, like 8 or 9.
You mean like since you came to Tech TV?
Yeah, just since we've ever known
Since
each
we've
other.
Known each other? That would be 16. 2002.
It's crazy. It was a great show. I really, really enjoyed this E3 in a number of ways. Hopefully it's not my last, but you never know. But if it was, man, I really squeezed it for all it was worth. And it was great doing another E3 with Matt and with Sam, and especially for you guys. Thanks for your
Nice,
support.
comfortable couch this time.
Yeah, it was nice. And thanks to you guys for supporting us. Our Patreon has actually gone up all the way through E3. We have more patrons right now than we've ever had. The money amount isn't the most we've ever had, but we have the most people contributing to it now. And I hope they stick around when the month turns over. It seems like we always get up there and then the month turns over and a bunch of them leave. So
everybody gotta pull out that $60 to buy the Crew 2.
exactly. Yeah. But thank you for your support. You guys have been great through E3. I'm going to take a day off or 2 this weekend. Hopefully you guys will give me a pass on that.
Seems fair.
So probably Monday things will start kicking into gear again. I seriously just need to get some sleep and kick my feet up a little
what
bit.
could possibly happen
Yeah.
in 2 days of a weekend after E3?
Hopefully nothing.
Dun, dun, dun. Yeah,
But thanks again, you guys. Thanks to all you guys who have subscribed to us through Twitch Prime in the stream today. Unfortunately, because I have this closed, a lot of the
you
notifications
gotta
I
set that
miss.
so it never goes to sleep. That'll
Yeah,
solve that.
we'll figure it out. But anyway, I appreciate you guys very, very much for everything you've done for Sifted and for supporting us during E3. I saw a lot of you guys out there on social media imploring people to use Sifted for E3. I appreciate everything that you guys do. It means a lot to me. So have a great weekend. Enjoy your E3 hangover. Game Face is up and out.